Welcome to Westeros, where the battle is on for the Iron Throne. Where some great families fight for honor.
You fight for the Starks, I fight for the Lannisters.
The Lannisters, oh God!
And others to rule at any cost.
It's about power and greed.
I won my crown!
Your heroes can die any second.
As the battle rages to be king or queen, after 5 seasons, a greater foe has arrived to take them all down.
Kill everyone, sit on the Iron Throne, and watch it snow.
Season 6 is coming, so let's get you up to speed with the epic storylines in Game of Thrones, the story so far.
The storytelling is really, really ancient.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win, or you die. There is no middle ground.
As Season 1 opens, it's the calm before the storm. King Robert Baratheon rules from the capital, King's Landing, but his days are numbered.
To be king in Westeros, you sit on the Iron Throne in King's Landing and you're ruling over the 7 kingdoms.
Start the damn joust before I piss myself.
He is locked in a loveless marriage and only chose his queen for her family's name to hold his kingdom together.
King Robert has married Cersei Lannister, a member of the hugely powerful, behind-the-scenes Lannister family. They're the ones who, if they back you, you're king.
Sometimes I don't know what holds it together.
Our marriage.
Cersei is so smart and, you know, she's just in this awful predicament.
This unhappy couple have 3 golden-haired children to their name. But Cersei keeps a deadly secret from Robert. The children are not his. The truth will be discovered on a royal trip north, and it's here that our story really begins. The king has asked his old ally Ned Stark to help him rule. Ned and his wife Catelyn govern the north, fiercely loyal to the crown.
The Starks stand for loyalty, integrity, bravery. They are really the moral compass of the show. They're the good guys, and they're the ones that you find yourself rooting for from the start.
The couple have 5 children, 3 sons and 2 daughters, and the decimation of this happy family will reverberate throughout our tale.
They're almost too innocent for that world.
King Robert arrives with his queen, Cersei, and with them is the whole Lannister clan.
That's Jaime Lannister, the Queen's twin brother. Would you please shut up?
And it's really the Lannisters who are going to introduce a lot of trouble into the lives of the Starks from this point.
The arrival of the Lannisters into that world totally sends shockwaves through the whole family.
Bran Stark goes climbing one day, gets to the top of a tower, and discovers the Lannisters' deep, dark secret. The secret is that Cersei, the queen, is actually sleeping with her brother, Jaime.
The Lannisters, oh God!
They are... I have never seen a family. I mean, talk about dysfunctional.
Stop! Stop!
It's incest, which even in Westeros is generally frowned upon. It also means that King Robert's children are not actually his children.
It's all right, it's all right.
He saw us!
I heard you the first time.
He knows what it means, too, and he knows that if the incest is discovered, not only will he and his sister be put to death, but their 3 children may very well, too.
And so, for Jaime Lannister, the greatest swordsman in Westeros, there's only one solution.
The things I do for love.
Here's a convenient way. The kid will die, it'll look like he fell, and our kids will be safe.
First in a coma, Bran will later awake with no memory of how he fell or what he saw. The royal secret is safe for now, and only the viewer has seen what the Lannisters will do to keep it.
The fact that he lives is almost the catalyst for all the series that go after it.
King Robert still wants Ned down in the capital, so this will be the last ever time we see the Stark family all together. A family which includes Ned's son out of wedlock, the bastard Jon Snow. Ned must now leave his family and follow King Robert, taking his daughters Sansa and Arya with him.
The reason I think that the first season of Game of Thrones works is it's essentially about this good family that just wants to essentially be left alone and serve their king and their country. This good family is ripped apart and thrown into situations that they never anticipated.
they are bound for the capital, King's Landing, where Ned's new task will be to protect King Robert from those who would unseat him. And in Season 1, viewers learn the greatest enemies live in exile overseas. The Targaryens are a royal family who were ousted from power.
Isn't he a gracious host?
They were dethroned by King Robert in the last war. The only surviving members of the family are a brother and sister called Viserys and Daenerys.
The siblings are the children of the Mad King, who was killed in war. Viserys dominates his younger sister.
Viserys has more than a touch of the Targaryen madness, and you know, sometimes he's protecting her, but he's also trying to treat her as a bargaining chip.
Come forward, my dear.
In search of an army, Viserys makes a pact with a savage tribe, the Dothraki, offering his beautiful young sister in marriage to their leader, Khal Drogo.
She's the only bargaining chip he has. He doesn't have any wealth anymore. He doesn't have any armies, but he has her, who he can trade to this horse lord.
I would let his whole tribe fuck you. All 40,000 men and their horses too, if that's what it took.
He's power hungry, but to a nasty degree. Doesn't really care how or by what means, he just wants to be important and looked up to.
But his plans backfire. Daenerys and Khal Drogo fall in love and become quite the power couple.
Suddenly she finds herself with Khal Drogo empowered. People are obeying her.
I am your king!
Shall we return to the Khalisar, Khaleesi?
He finally pushes it too far with the horse tribe.
Tell him I want what was bargained for, or I'm taking you back.
He just completely underestimates not only Dany, but Khal Drogo.
What's he saying?
He says yes. You shall have a golden crown.
And then he gets it.
Look away, Khaleesi.
No.
She just has that, like, stoic look on her face. And you're not fit to be king.
A crown for king.
Wearing the crown is deadly. His father was the king and he met a grisly end. So it's only appropriate, really, that when he gets his crown, he should die too.
He was revolting. He was utterly, utterly revolting. And that was the moment that she escaped from her shell, when she became the woman and not the kowtowed girl.
And so in Season 1, it's a now pregnant Daenerys who emerges as a power player, with Khal Drogo's backing.
I love Daenerys. I love the journey she's gone on.
And as the Targaryens grow in power, we learn that King Robert faces another challenge to his northernmost borders. Threats which led past rulers to build this giant wall of ice to keep out wild things beyond. It's protected by the legendary Night's Watch.
The Night's Watch are a small army who guard the northern border of the country. In Season 1, there's lots of fighting for the throne, but actually in the background, there are these creatures appearing north of the wall that nobody has seen for thousands of years. And no one quite wants to believe that they're there, but they certainly are.
We hear the characters saying that this is all folklore, that this is all made up. But for the viewer, we see that basically these characters do exist. They are there. I think the White Walkers are really terrifying, mostly because you're not 100% sure you know what they're capable of doing or what their motives are.
They are a serious threat.
But the Night's Watch gets a powerful new member when Ned Stark's bastard son, Jon Snow, feels compelled to make the trek to the Wall to join this ancient order.
Everybody has a pilgrimage, has a thing to do, and that is the thing that drives them through the drama.
Father, no children. I shall wear no crown.
There is no turning back from these vows. Jon and new friend Samwell Tarly forsake everything else for the quest to protect Westeros.
Darkness. I am the watcher on the walls. I am the shield that guards from the realm of men.
The journey is the thing that you're watching, and people take part in it, and their character comes from what they have to do and where they have to go. And that's a really ancient way of telling stories.
But down at the political heart of Westeros, the capital King's Landing, Ned Stark is now mired in intrigue. His daughter, Sansa, sees King Robert's son, Prince Joffrey, as her fairy tale suitor.
She's presented with marrying the future king, live in a beautiful castle, go to banquets, have beautiful dresses to wear, a fairy tale story.
You'll be queen someday. It's only fitting you should look the part.
But Ned learns the heir is not King Robert's son and makes the mistake of his life, confronting Cersei, Joffrey's mother.
My brother's worth 1,000 of your friend.
Your brother? Or your lover?
He's a man of the North, and he doesn't know King's Landing and doesn't really know what it takes to be successful there.
When the king returns from his hunt, I'll tell him the truth. You must be gone by then. You and your children. I will not have their blood on my hands.
He's just been stuck up in the North too long and has no idea how the real world operates, how to really deal with the kind of the politics of Westeros.
Robert's wrath will follow you.
And what of my wrath, Lord Stark?
Ned has crossed a Lannister, for which he will pay dearly.
You then get the biggest shock in season 1 of Game of Thrones.
King Robert Baratheon, murdered by a pig.
Ned, he was vulnerable, but that's what happens if you try and be a truthful character in King's Landing.
Joffrey is now king, and without Robert to protect him, Ned is tried for treason. He confesses, believing it will save his daughter, but misjudges the new ruler.
He's just evil. He's a wicked kid all the time. He's never anything else.
Bring me his head.
That's when you realise nobody is safe in this world at all.
When I saw Sean being pushed down, that was the only scene that really has brought a tear to my eye.
It's cruel, it's heartbreaking, but there's a point to the children witnessing this. If they want to survive, they have to start to be resilient. They have to learn from this.
It was at that moment you realised what Game of Thrones was really about.
It's here that the Stark family splinters. Arya is whisked away by a Night's Watch brother loyal to Ned, leaving Sansa at the mercy of Joffrey. And when news reaches Ned's eldest son, Robb Stark, he rallies the North to avenge him.
Robb is the heir, and he's not only picking up his father's mantle as Lord of Winterfell, but he's picking up a much older mantle, the crown that no one has worn for 300 years, the Kingdom of the North.
It will lead to all-out war between the Starks and the Lannisters, who are led by its patriarch, Tywin Lannister.
He is the person who's got the strategic vision for the family. He's the big player, and if you get Tywin Lannister on your side, you're going to get the throne.
As well as his twins, Cersei and Jaime, he also has a disappointing third child, Tyrion, who isn't built for battle, but still has to join the war effort.
I always thought you were a stunted fool. Perhaps I was wrong.
Half wrong?
He's the perfect anti-hero. You know, he's not that big, strong mountain who can, defeat people, but he defeats people with his wit and his intelligence.
But when Jaime is captured in battle, Tywin is forced to put his faith in Tyrion.
You will go to King's Landing.
And do what?
Rule.
As Tyrion sets off for King's Landing across the narrow sea, Season 1 ends in triumph for Daenerys Targaryen, but not before she suffers tragedy.
She has a short period of being happy, and then Khal Drogo dies.
For all your days.
They were not given to me to sell.
Well, the dragons in themselves are hugely symbolic because they represent power as much as anything else.
Centuries back, her Targaryen ancestors conquered Westeros because they controlled the dragons who once lived there. The beasts are long extinct, but all that is about to change.
Season 1 ends with the sight of Daenerys emerging from a fire unscathed with her dragons hatched.
These creatures are extraordinary creatures, the likes of which have not been seen in hundreds of years.
It's almost like a rebirth, but she's no longer Daenerys Stormborn, she's Mother of Dragons, literally.
As the dragons are born, she comes more and more to her own until the power becomes innate to her.
It's about a new era. The whole first season is essentially the old era dying out and the new era beginning. And by the end, she has a sense that she knows that she's bound for greatness.
And so we come to Season 2, which marks a new reign of tyranny in the capital, King's Landing. Joffrey is brutalizing his subjects, as well as his bride-to-be, Sansa Stark.
You can't!
What did you say?
Joffrey, he's a miserable kid with absolute power.
Take him away. I'll have him killed tomorrow, the fool.
He's a bully, and we don't like bullies.
Killing you would send your brother a message.
Sansa has learned some painful lessons along the way. The chivalrous knights and gallant princes that she dreamed of. She got a gallant prince, and he turned out to be Joffrey.
Leave her face. I like her pretty.
She's a prisoner in the worst place imaginable, enduring all kinds of psychological and sometimes physical abuse from these captors.
All our lives are in danger. I heard a disgusting lie about Uncle Jamie. And you?
He's the product of a brother and sister shagging. So, like, you know, this might be why he isn't all there mentally.
What are you asking? I'm asking if he fucked other women when he grew tired of you. How many bastards does he have running?
Cersei's smart enough to realize that Joffrey is not what she might have hoped for. He's getting out of her control now, and he's a danger, in part, even to her and even to other members of the family.
What you just did is punishable by death.
Joffrey's enemies are everywhere. Chief amongst them, and just across the bay at Dragonstone, is Stannis, brother of the late King Robert, who believes the throne should be his.
He believes that he's entitled to the throne for reasons which, technically speaking, are perfectly sound.
Stannis has learnt that Robert's children are Lannister bastards, which means that it is Stannis who is next in line.
So Stannis Baratheon, who knows that King Joffrey is a product of incest, decides to send ravens out to all the corners of the Seven Kingdoms, letting them know the Lannister secret.
With his eye on the prize, Stannis enlists a Red Priestess to help him win power.
She believes Stannis is the savior of the worlds, basically. He's supposed to be on the Iron Throne. And her magical powers have no limits, I think. There's so much that we don't know that she can do.
However, Stannis isn't the only one after the throne. His younger brother Renly also believes he has a claim, and so war is inevitable.
Whose banner is that?
My own.
Suppose if we use the same one, the battle would be terribly confusing.
When they become competitors for the throne, they become enemies at the same time.
The Iron Throne is mine, by right. All those that deny that are my foes.
The whole realm denies it from dawn to the wall.
They both think they should be king, but I'm on Stannis' side, so screw Renly.
Rather than fight it out on the battlefield, Stannis finds another way to kill his brother, because family ties don't mean an awful lot in Westeros.
The powerful sorcery of the Red Priestess is revealed when she gives birth to a sinister weapon.
The Shadow Baby is basically just a way to kill Renly, and it comes out of me in a great way.
What I think is brilliant about Game of Thrones is it lives in a fantasy world. It's a completely realistic depiction of how power works, what power does to people, what people do to get power, and what happens when they fall short, when they miss the mark. And that's why it's so brilliant.
When Renly is murdered, it leaves behind his widow, Marjorie Tyrell, who belongs to the Tyrell family, who are very rich and powerful in their own right.
Calling yourself king doesn't make you one. And if Renly wasn't a king, I wasn't a queen.
Marjorie is an absolute piece of work. You know, she wants power.
Do you want to be a queen?
No. I want to be the queen.
Across the narrow sea, Daenerys Targaryen is learning valuable lessons in her quest to return to Westeros and seize the throne.
She is desperate to be a good ruler, that she can, go to bed at night saying, I think I'm doing things the right way.
Welcome to Karth, my lady.
Things don't go quite to plan when she accepts the hospitality of the wrong people.
She makes strong, powerful decisions, but often those decisions have consequences and side effects that aren't good.
And this looks like it might be a costly decision when the rulers of Karth steal her dragons and sentence her to eternal imprisonment.
They miss their mother. They want to be with you. Do you want to be with them? You will be.
When she's in Karth, everybody just kind of thinks, like, who are you? We'll just take your dragons. We'll take your dragons and you're not powerful anymore.
But this is Game of Thrones, and instead Daenerys shows exactly what she and her baby dragons are capable of.
Dracarys.
People have underestimated her the whole way.
And it is in Season 2 that we finally see the dragons kill for Daenerys. As Daenerys' power grows in exile, back at the Wall, Jon Snow and the Night's Watch are called to defend against another growing menace beyond the border, the Wildlings. Their various tribes have united and are marching south. Jon infiltrates their ranks and comes face to face with the full scale of their massed forces.
So this is where we realize that the Wildling army came together and united, and so the threat is very real of the Wildlings, and Jon Snow realizes this and decides to join them.
Game of Thrones is really good about revealing mysteries slowly to you. Things are always kind of fed to you in little bite sizes.
3 blasts.
And with the White Walkers, it's the same. You only get a little tiny taster every season of where we're going.
And Season 2 is where we discover the full horror of the threat that these icy killers pose.
They can play the Game of Thrones all they like down there in the King's Landing, but an army of ostensibly zombies and these White Walkers is heading their way to, destroy the world.
We have all these kingdoms wanting to fight for the throne, and they think that that is what ultimately the battle is about. But really, at the end of the day, they're not looking at what's the real problem here, and it's the White Walkers.
Convinced the Iron Throne should be his, Stannis Baratheon attacks King Joffrey's army at Blackwater Bay. With Stannis' army hammering at the gates, an unlikely hero steps up.
I'll lead the attack!
Joffrey's uncle, Tyrion Lannister, bravely leads the defense of the city.
He's sort of the heart of the story, because he's one of the few people who can step back and see everything that's going on, and that's because of his position as an outsider that comes from him having a disability.
Having the imp as an heroic character, is a brilliant piece of plotting, but it also draws attention to what we expect from heroes.
There's our brave men knocking at our door! Let's go kill them!
Tyrion manages to get the troops fired up by giving a good speech, and then heads out with them to fight Stannis on the bay. He doesn't last very long. He gets knocked out after a couple of minutes.
But Tyrion is upstaged by his father, Tywin, who arrives with his own massive army, bolstered by the Tyrells, who've now firmly joined the cause.
Tywin Lannister is one of the great warriors and battle strategists of the age.
The battle is over. We have won.
It's that moment where you really see where power lies. It's not in the king. It's in the person behind the king.
And so Season 2 ends with the Lannisters victorious. But as Season 3 begins, Daenerys Targaryen is on a warpath and heading to Slaver's Bay. She and her dragons may have grown in power and stature, but securing an army still eludes her, so she ventures to a place where she can buy one.
She knows she needs an army, a powerful army, if she ever wants to reclaim the Westerosi throne. And the best bet for that are the Unsullied.
They will stand until they drop.
Who are incredible warriors, obedient warriors.
They may suit my needs. Tell me of their training.
Dany's code is very much anti-slavery. She knows what it's like to be bought and sold. So she ends up doing it on her terms.
I have dragons. I'll give you one.
She seems to have made this daft agreement to give away her best dragon. I actually say to her, you know, you won't win a war with slaves, but you will with dragons.
But she shows she's outgrown her mentors.
I really loved the fact that she had hidden her talent for Valyrian.
Once she knows that she's got the Unsullied on her side, then it's very easy to say to the dragon, who still will listen to her and not to him, burn him.
Dracarys.
She's saying to them, you're now free men.
She's been the mother of dragons, and you knew she was destined for greatness, but now she really is a queen with an army.
And it's like, on top of this, she's got these fire-breathing, mythical creatures that are just gonna tear shit up.
Impressive, yes, but 8,000 followers is not enough. Daenerys knows she'll need to win more followers before she can embark upon her ultimate mission, to journey home to Westeros and claim the Iron Throne, where in the capital, King's Landing, the Lannister family are the power behind the throne, pulling the strings of the boy king, Joffrey Baratheon. Joffrey's ditched Sansa and is now betrothed to Marjorie Tyrell, a reward for the Tyrells' military support at Blackwater.
I imagine it must be so exciting to squeeze your finger here and watch something die over there.
Marjorie Tyrell is learning how to manage the very volatile king.
The Tyrells are a great family with rich, fertile lands in the west, considered by most as a force for good.
Speak freely, child.
They're still cunning and skilled at the game, with their eye on the throne, an enemy within.
He's a monster.
Olenna is the matriarch of the family.
Ah.
And she advises her granddaughter on how best to play the political game so that she might take power in King's Landing.
We thank you for the truth.
As Marjorie enchants Joffrey, Cersei's influence wanes. She's increasingly isolated. Her brother Jaime is still missing, a prisoner of war out in the Riverlands, guarded by Brienne of Tarth.
Brienne of Tarth, I think she's, I like her best.
But when the two are both captured by a northern faction, they're both in danger, and Jaime finds he must play protector.
This is all bundled up in when Jaime begins to start thinking about other people.
God, you're making it worse.
His efforts to stop Brienne being raped are the beginning of that.
You know who she is, don't you?
It's good when those little bits of goodness come in those characters that are so devilish as well. Just to give you a little light in there.
Lord Selwyn would pay his daughter's weight in sapphires if she's returned to him.
I mean, of course, it being Game of Thrones, it doesn't get him anywhere. Another one of those Game of Thrones moments which has so much more going on in it than just him losing his hand. He's the greatest swordsman in Westeros, we're told, so he can't do that anymore.
Yet without his hand, we see Jaime Lannister at his most heroic. The heartless knight who pushed Bran Stark from the tower finds new honour in Season 3. He'd secured an escape route back to King's Landing, but found he could not abandon Brienne.
He's left her behind, and he's on his way to King's Landing. Then his captors mention that what's going to happen to her. And then he decides to return and save her.
And this newfound chivalry means the Lannisters must do without Jaime behind the Iron Throne a while longer. And it is in Season 3 that we witness the fearsome work of another powerful family, the Boltons, who are scheming to take control of the North.
I think the Boltons want pretty much what everyone else seems to want, is power and status.
Kill me! You're no good to me, dead. We need you.
Ramsay, a bastard son of the family, enjoys torturing his enemies, including Theon Greyjoy, who he took prisoner when sacking Winterfell after Ned's demise.
I think historically the Boltons have always been just under the Starks, kind of the Starks have always been on top of them, so I think they feel that now's their time to rise.
You don't look like a Theon Greyjoy anymore.
It's unbelievable what Ramsay's capable of doing to people.
Reek. Reek! That's a good name for you.
Completely mutilated him, broke his will entirely and turned him basically into a subservient sort of wreck called Reek.
Another hostage at large in season 3 is Arya Stark, kidnapped by the Hound. The disgraced knight plans to find Arya's family and trade her for cash.
Remember what happens to children who run.
One of the great double acts of Game of Thrones is the Hound and Arya.
Need a hand?
Hound's a really interesting character because you never really know what you feel about him. I mean, he's ghastly.
Don't kill him.
She is this elfin character with this tiny little sword, and you just think she's never going to survive.
There's something so perversely magical about that pairing, sort of warped mentor-protege relationship that develops.
In order to survive in that world, you've got to match what is given you.
In his desire to claim a ransom, the Hound heads for the Twins, where he knows that Arya's mother and brother, Catelyn and Robb Stark, are attending a wedding. Arya and her captor believe they're both about to get what they most desire, to reunite a child with her mother. They're both so very wrong. The Twins is a strategic river crossing controlled by the Frey family, and the Starks need them on side for their war effort.
Walder Frey is a very bitter, nasty old man who controls a small but significant area in the kingdom.
I was pledged to marry one of you, and I broke that vow.
Robb's come to make peace. After failing to marry one of Walder Frey's daughters, the Stark family offer Robb's uncle to make amends, and are here for that wedding. A terrible mistake.
Catelyn, in her heart, knew that you do not break a promise if you are the king of the North, and also you certainly don't break it to Walder Frey.
The moment where Cat sees that Roose Bolton is wearing chainmail is a powerful moment.
Even though I'd read the scripts, the Red Wedding still completely was shocking, and I was still screaming at the TV, don't do it, no, don't. You just don't want it to happen.
The Red Wedding is the event that pretty much decimates an entire generation of the Stark family.
Such a shock.
I'm almost speechless about it still.
The Lannisters send their regards.
It is an ambush relished by Walder Frey, and we learn backed by Tywin Lannister.
Robb is such an amazing character. I think you kind of want him to be the king and to win.
It's the cruelty of it, and it's the relishing of it.
Following the brutal slaughter of the Starks at the Red Wedding, Arya Stark arrives at the Twins to witness her brother's desecrated body and loses any last shred of innocence.
She learns to become stronger and fight, and also she's after revenge.
And when she comes across her family's killers later, she matches their brutality. And so, by the end of season 3, all the elder Starks have gone from the Game of Thrones. Only the children remain, orphaned and scattered across Westeros, including Bran Stark, still paralysed from his fall. He's fled Winterfell with a loyal band of followers heading north.
It's all right. The walls will protect him.
Bran Stark is very much on his own journey to discover the root of this ancient magic that's reappearing in the kingdom throughout the seasons.
And yet, amid the slaughter and loss in season 3, comes a huge breakthrough in the fight against the White Walkers. Unlikely hero Samwell Tarly stumbles on their weakness.
You stay back!
From the moment we meet Sam, he says, I'm a coward, I'm a craven, I'm the guy who runs away and cries.
Samwell reaches for all he has to hand, an old dragon glass spear he once found in the ground, and it kills the White Walker.
To his astonishment, it works. The spells are shattered and it's melting before him.
So, as Season 3 ends with a splinter of hope, A King's Landing Season 4 begins with an apparent celebration. A royal wedding unites two of the great houses of Westeros, the Tyrells and the Lannisters.
Marjorie and Joffrey's wedding is one of those weddings that we all have to go to where there's no love in the room.
The wedding brings another great family into the game, the Martells, represented by Prince Oberyn. They might not want the Iron Throne yet, but they want to take the Lannisters down.
He's ostensibly in King's Landing because he wants to attend the royal wedding. In actual fact, he's there to get revenge on the Lannisters.
Tell your father I'm here. And tell him the Lannisters aren't the only ones who pay their debts.
Joffrey really uses the wedding as an excuse to be as horrible as he can.
Uncle, you can be my cupbearer.
He sees it as an opportunity to wield his power because he can. And you're dying for something to happen to him.
He's choking!
Calm the poor boy! And so, when an unseen hand poisons the newlywed king...
Idiots, help your king!
Move away! It's the moment of retribution that the whole of the Seven Kingdoms have been waiting for.
I think everybody who watches Game of Thrones was hoping this day would come.
I wanted to kill him in such a way that the viewers were reminded that here's a 13-year-old boy who's dying.
Though it is actually the Tyrells that have poisoned Joffrey, it is Tyrion who is blamed.
This is really the point where Tyrion's fragile bonds with his family begin to unravel.
Take him! Take him! Take him!
In plot terms, the death of Joffrey is another shaking of the board where the pieces are scattered. And also, it's one of those things that elevate the whole series from merely a story into a saga.
And that saga continues when the news from Westeros reaches Meereen, where Daenerys has conquered the city with her growing army.
King Joffrey Baratheon is dead. Murdered at his own wedding.
This would appear to be a really good time for her to finally make her play for the Iron Throne. But actually, she has new responsibilities now, and she has unfinished business where she is, and she's still trying to learn how to rule.
And to compound matters, her dragons have grown so big that Daenerys has started to lose control of them.
Everyone loves a dragon. I think they're getting more impressive every season.
As they get bigger, as her power increases, the harder it is for her to manage. And that's where the story then has to go. All they're going to bring is complexity.
And when one of the dragons kills a child and abandons her, Daenerys is left with no other choice but to chain the other two.
She's just locked up her dragons, so can she unleash them again? And will they forgive her?
Without the mighty force of her dragons, Daenerys is faced with a dilemma as to what to do next.
The challenge to her is, at what point am I or will I be ready to go back to Westeros to claim the throne?
How can I rule 7 kingdoms if I can't control Slaver's Bay?
She's definitely going through a sort of a dark night of the soul, I think, where she's trying to determine, have I got what it takes?
And so in Season 4, Daenerys decides to stay in Meereen and learn first how to rule before she attempts to invade Westeros. And the resulting chaos of Joffrey's death also has a huge effect on the Stark children. Sansa manages to flee King's Landing and make her way to the Eyrie to take refuge with her Aunt Lysa. Her escape is masterminded by arch-schemer Littlefinger, a shadowy figure behind many plots in Game of Thrones.
Littlefinger's playing a very chaotic game, and he thrives on that.
Oh, my sweet wife.
And to gain control of powerful lands, he marries Sansa's aunt. And once she's served her purpose, he disposes of her.
For Littlefinger, it's all about getting power, I think, and using Lysa as a pawn along the way.
Sansa is witness to this crime and has to decide where her allegiances lie.
Sansa's one of these poor characters who's been mistreated all through the series. She's seen a lot of horrible, horrible things happen, and she's never been able to take control, and this is the first time that actually she's got nothing else to lose.
When Sansa lied to protect Littlefinger, I cheered. I thought, thank god girl.
He tried to reason with her, promised her she was the only one he had ever loved, but she stepped through those doors and she was...
What you discover is that she's been learning this entire time. She's been listening, she's been watching. She's been taking Littlefinger's lessons to heart.
So, from one Stark protege to another, Sansa's sister Arya is still the Hound's hostage, but they're now on an equal footing.
Who would pass the bloody gate? The bloody Hound, Sandor Clegane, and his traveling companion, Arya Stark.
He's her captor, but he's also her protector. And, you know, she's seen his own pain and his own fear at times, and they've shared some dangerous situations.
The relationship is finally tested after the Hound battles with Brienne, and he is left mortally wounded. Arya is forced to strike out on her own, but not before the Hound's young charge must decide whether he lives or dies.
Fuck it. I'm ready.
Now he's wounded and he's dying, and she's remembering all he said about mercy, and he's asking for mercy. And by mercy, he means, a quick thrust to kill him. And she doesn't give it to him.
Kill me.
They've changed each other through their experience together.
Kill me!
But sadly, what it means is in this moment, she won't put him out of his misery. She won't give him the easy way out. She's going to leave him there to suffer.
Also changing is Arya's brother Bran. Now north of the Wall, he's acquired mystical powers, including the art of mind control, known as warging.
I have to say that the scenes that we filmed with him warging into Hodor, that they were my favourite scenes. I think Bran's powers will continue to develop, and he'll almost be like a force of nature. I think the throne will be irrelevant to him by the time he's finished his sort of growth of his powers.
And so by the end of season 4, Bran has made it to the end of his quest, where he discovers just what the future holds.
Going to help me walk again? You'll never walk again. But you will fly.
At the Wall, the Night's Watch suffers a huge wildling attack at Castle Black. But in season 4, they get a powerful new ally. Stannis Baratheon, who's been away licking his wounds after the Blackwater defeat, joins them with his vast army.
He emerges as a huge contender for the throne at the end of season 4 when he liberates Castle Black. Stannis realizes that going for King's Landing was not the right course. The Battle of the Blackwater was a huge and crushing defeat at the end of season 2, and it's taken them basically 2 seasons to sort of rebuild from that.
And his arrival means that Jon Snow could have a new ally in the battle against the White Walkers beyond the Wall.
Your Grace, if my father had seen the things that I've seen, he'd also tell you to burn the dead before nightfall. All of them.
Seeing him paired with Jon Snow, and that storyline is going to have huge ramifications in season 5.
I'm guilty of being a dwarf.
You're not on trial for being a dwarf.
Oh, yes I am. I've been on trial for that my entire life.
He's put on trial for a murder he doesn't commit. His father deserts him and betrays him.
I demand a trial by combat.
I mean, trial by combat, you can get someone to fight for your honour, so whether you're wrong or not, as long as they win the fight, that's what matters.
He names Oberyn Martell as his champion.
Oberyn was a new character in the season, incredibly charismatic. Everyone rooted for him. You just thought he was going to win.
Gonna smash their head in like this!
But when Oberyn is defeated, Tyrion is sentenced to death.
In Westeros, the pursuit of justice is as futile as anything else.
Oh, get on with it, you son of a whore.
Is that any way to speak about her mother?
Tyrion is released from jail by his brother Jaime and told to go and board a ship and run away. Instead, he decides to check in on his father, Tywin.
Am I alone?
Tyrion then kills Shay in a sort of fit of jealousy, and then takes a crossbow and goes to find his father.
Tyrion, put down the crossbow.
It's so tightly wound, this scene, because Tyrion's obviously, he's at the end of his rope. What's brilliant about him, he's so well portrayed, you can see yourself doing this.
We'll go back to my chambers and speak with some dignity.
I can't go back there. She's in there.
Are you afraid of a dead horse?
This is someone who spent his whole life trying to win his approbation. As much as he hated him, he really wanted that, you know. Obviously, that's never going to happen now because he put a crossbow bolt in his groin.
You're no son of mine.
I am your son. I have always been your son.
What it means is when a big character like that goes, there's going to be a power vacuum and there's going to be hustling and jostling to get into his place.
And so we come to season 5. After killing his father, Tyrion has fled across the narrow sea to Pentos, a fugitive on the run.
He was a Lannister, and he had all the money in the world. And a noble name and a big bag of gold can buy you a lot. All that's gone now. His name is a death sentence. He's totally at the mercy of the people he's traveling with.
Who are you? And then the unthinkable happens.
I am the gift.
He is captured and handed over to his family's greatest enemy, the Targaryen queen-in-waiting, Daenerys.
My name is Tyrion Lannister. Tyrion was in danger, not least because, you know, his brother killed her dad.
But rather than execute him,
I'm not going to kill you.
she sees Tyrion's potential value.
No? Banish me?
No.
So if I'm not going to be murdered and I'm not going to be banished...
You're going to advise me.
She knows that you can't just win the Game of Thrones by strength and power and goodness. You've got to connive.
And between them, they are an extraordinary force.
Meanwhile, in King's Landing, after sending Jaime to Dorne to bring back their daughter, Cersei is left vulnerable. Her son, Tommen, is now king and has fallen under the spell of his new queen, Margaery, much to Cersei's dismay.
I think Tommen loves Margaery, as in, like, a husband should, but Margaery, as much as she cares about Tommen, it's more about her being queen.
Mother! Welcome. Marjorie's just an absolute master at manipulation.
What's the proper way to address you now? Queen Mother or Dowager Queen?
Like, she knows exactly how to play people, and she's so adept at it that nobody ever notices that she's doing it, apart from Cersei, who is a manipulator herself. Like, she knows exactly what she's up to.
Judging from the king's enthusiasm, the Queen Mother will be a Queen Grandmother soon. Wouldn't that be a lovely day?
While Cersei and Margaery fight over the king, up at Castle Black, his uncle Stannis is still lusting after the throne. In order to take it, he must first liberate Winterfell and tries to enlist the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, Jon Snow.
You know who rules at Winterfell now?
Roose Bolton.
The traitor who plunged a dagger in Robb Stark's heart. Don't you want to avenge him?
Jon has always had an incredible amount of integrity and honor.
All my life, I wanted to be Jon Stark. Say the word and you will be. But I have to refuse you.
It's exemplified when he denies Stannis.
I'm Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. My place is here.
He just wants to protect everyone around him and help. Whereas other people, Lannisters, Baratheons, they just want one thing, and that's power.
So as Jon Snow remains behind to defend the wall, Stannis strikes out for Winterfell.
He's going after something, and it's increasingly futile.
In a desperate move, Stannis follows the advice of the Red Priestess, who promises him victory if he makes an unspeakable offering to the Lord of Light.
That's one of the most chilling scenes, I think, of season 5. When he burns his child.
Melisandre really thought that Stannis would be the one, and, you know, she's put a lot of her heart and soul and everything else into helping him.
But it proves to be his undoing. His men desert him, and Melisandre, realizing all is lost, flees to Castle Black, leaving Stannis to advance to Winterfell on his own.
Speak up. Can't be worse than mutiny.
Because he wants power, he ends up
losing everything.
And awaiting Stannis at Winterfell are the Boltons, who try to cement their position in the north with a tactical marriage to Sansa Stark.
God, poor Sansa Stark. She's been through so much.
May I introduce my son, Ramsay Bolton?
Now that the Boltons have kind of established themselves at Winterfell, there's a huge proportion of the North that's still very loyal to the Starks. So bringing in a Stark will really solidify their position in the North.
Master manipulator Littlefinger has concocted a plan to marry Sansa to Ramsay Bolton to take them down from within.
Sansa, she's surrounded by these evil people that just want power, and she's just there in the middle, being tossed about between them.
So Sansa marries Ramsay.
We take this man.
But it's a huge miscalculation that traps her in another brutal relationship.
We care about her innocence, her purity, and after all this time of trying to protect that, suddenly it's gone by the most despicable person that we know at this point.
Oh, no.
You stay here, Reek. You watch.
Fellow prisoner Theon Greyjoy, aka Reek, is too terrified to help.
I think we all thought he should have stepped in on the wedding night, let's be frank.
With Ramsay distracted by battle,
You're leaving it to me.
Sansa is caught attempting to escape, and it's only then that Reek finds the courage to become Theon again.
Theon had to stand up and finally stop being Reek and finally take back some power, and that, I think, will lead to a really exciting season 6.
They've jumped the wall, but where are they going to go?
As Sansa and Theon leap from the walls of Winterfell, nearby Stannis is facing defeat by the vast Bolton army.
I think Stannis had given up. I think even before they'd gone into battle, I think he was going there to die.
He knew he was beat. He was wounded. His army had been done for.
Fate finally catches up with Stannis when he comes face to face with Brienne of Tarth, who sought vengeance for Renly's death since season 2.
Bolton has women fighting for him.
When Brienne turned up, he just knew. You know, he was kind of like, I'm done.
I'm Brienne of Tarth. I was Kingsguard to Renly Baratheon.
I think that's a very satisfying moment because that finishes the circle of her loyalty to Renly.
I was there when he was murdered by a shadow with your face.
And it was just like, do your duty. It was like, there's no more to be said.
Get to know characters 5 years, and then he's gone.
You don't get up from that unless spooky old Red Witch does something to him. And we don't want tinkering with Jon Snow, do we?
It's obviously what everyone wants to know, don't they? You know, I understand that. I don't know, or do I?
And so season 5 ends with betrayal and loss, begging the question, who will fight for good in season 6, with its new struggle for vengeance and power?
I'm given quite a free rein to design and make. Obviously David and Dan, and obviously our department will have an input in some areas of it. This year, for example, I had to show Tyne's dagger and Nim's whip and Obara's spear and Ariel's axe, but they're the only items that I had to pre-show prior to making. But this year I was very happy with Ariel's axe. It came out the way I wanted it, and it looks quite opulent for the world that it's in. It's approximately 7 feet, if maybe slightly even more. It's quite a big axe. Design-wise, it's just I knew where I wanted to go with it, with the filigree and the dressing, and obviously with the door and snakes, that kind of scenario. So we got some Swarovski diamonds, one inset in the middle in the crest, and there's another one in the bursting sun. There's a bearing in there, which is basically a see-through, so you can actually see right through it. Once the sun hits it, it's translucent, so it gives a lovely sheen to it, beautiful red. Obara's spear was exactly what we had last year for the Viper himself. It's a version of that, and again, that's keeping in the same wave on the blade. It has that crisp blade to make sure that we were in the same world of the Dorne family. We've done whips before, but they've been sort of not plain, but quite straightforward. So this year I wanted to take over the whip scenario and design then basically a snake intertwining the handle. So it's all about the snake, and then obviously the whip coming out of the snake's mouth. So it's creating the whip as the tongue and just having it like that. So it's a lovely sculpt and a good bronze figurine for that. So Tyene again has a double daggers. She's quite agile with them. The daggers I liked because what I did with them is I just basically had a snake intertwining and crisscrossing, and I used her tails as a quilling, so we would use that as a block point, and then again a wave on the blade, which is called a crisp blade. They turned out very well. I was very happy with them.
The job of the production designer, just like any sort of aspect of the filmmaking process, always begins with a text. And so from there is where we launch the whole art department. And what that means, just like for an actor who creates a character that an audience believe in, the job of the art department is to create worlds and environments that the audience believe in. And hopefully through long processes whereby we involve obviously construction, paint, plaster, set decoration, we complete a world that is, in a sense, completely real within the world of Game of Thrones. And I think where Game of Thrones actually needs a lot of credit is actually we really try and keep a lot of scenes in camera. So for as much as possible, we create total environments. I mean, it's an extraordinary thing to be able to build a 360-degree space. On every level, we try and be very thoughtful and mindful of the colours that relate to the character involved, their status in society, and what do we want an audience to know about them as they're moving through the landscape. We were looking at the world of Dawn and the Spanish and Moorish influence. The exciting thing about Dawn is it's the warmest of the climates that we visit. It's also incredibly exotic. And so I think it was a real opportunity for us to introduce colour into the world as well. You know, these people are much more into sort of oranges and blues, and there's a real vibrancy and energy about the city or about the place. And so Seville in Spain was the natural place for us to start. And we were absolutely beyond lucky being able to shoot in the Alcazar. The thing that was really interesting about the Osuna bull ring as opposed to any other bull ring that we sort of managed to source was that, in a sense, it was just very plain. It had sort of the stone bleachers, and what that meant was it really had a fantastic relationship automatically with marine. So being able to work with what was essentially quite a blank palette meant that it had a very close relationship to the sort of the architectural language that we'd already established. And I also enjoyed the very big pillars at the side with the angles on them, which related to the pyramidal style architecture we'd already used. And what we had to design there was a royal box for Dany and her guys to be in. And what that meant was we were able to do a completely clean build out in that arena there. It was a completely different style of construction. It was a full-on building site for weeks, and it's just a function of this show, because we're doing so much at once, is phenomenal. So it was something that, from my perspective, I'd never seen done before.
We start with a script, we'll step through the fight and then work out what the journeys of the characters are, how many people are involved, and then we'll start just playing with ideas. Someone will have thought of a move or a disarm, and then so basically you have a little melting pot of people. I bring stunt guys in, you shoot the sequence, we'll cut a rough edit with a rough idea how it might look, but they show what the idea of the fight or the sequence might be. Kit's doing most of it himself, he's doing all the fighting, he moves really well, he's great. The thing about Christopher, you don't have to build him up, you have to just rein him back a little bit. And not in a dangerous, reckless way, he's just full on. And the stunt guys love it, so it was really cool working with him. Ian's another one that doesn't pull too much. You know, he picks up the fights really well, wants to do it all himself, so we hardly use the double. Jessica was living in London, Rosa comes from Italy, Keisha from New Zealand, so we had to train all those guys remotely. So you've got spear, double daggers, we've also got an 8-foot whip. We arranged for traders in each country, and they rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed before the sequence was shot. We've got lots going on. We've got people jumping off cliffs. We've got boats turning over. We've got some really big kills going on, throwing people everywhere. I had 50 stunt guys shooting a huge sequence. There's a lot of stunt people for a film, let alone a TV show. My team and I seem to slip in okay, and it is kind of like a big family, so I think it's going to be amazing.
It's time to raise the gates on the greatest moments from Game of Thrones.
Oh, it's amazing. It's frightening.
As voted by you.
It's about survival, it's about power, it's about revenge.
For 5 seasons, we've had plot hatching and character dispatching.
And you're like crying at the screen, being like, no!
There's been power and corruption.
Bring me his head!
This is not a Robin Hood movie here where 3 guys are going to swing over the fence.
No one's safe in this world.
All these no-go areas, we just go right into them.
You want to know how power works, what it does to people, what people do to get it, watch Game of Thrones. You don't need to put panorama on.
Put down the crossbow.
We asked you to vote for your favourites, and the tally is in.
God, that scene was perfect.
So strap in and steel yourself.
It's terrifying.
It's the 20 greatest moments from Game of Thrones.
Kill everyone, sit on the Iron Throne, watch it snow.
At number 20, it's a moment of eye-watering vengeance as Arya Stark takes a major scalp from her kill list.
I'm glad he left me you.
It's just such a fantastic way to go. You know, if you're going to go on this show, try and go spectacularly.
That scene where she kills Meryn Trant is so twisted.
Amazing, amazing.
In season 5, this orphan and her list of people who've destroyed her world has taken refuge in Braavos.
Meryn Trant.
I just love that she's got a list. You know, I love that. I've got a list.
It's a kill list shaped by 4 seasons of loss.
Arya is the most sympathetic character for me of all, because losing both parents, she will have an utterly skewed view of life. She doesn't know any different. She has seen such brutality that she treats like with like.
And she's been tutored by one of the best killers in Westeros, the Hound.
You're learning.
She learns to become stronger and fight, and also she's after revenge.
And so, in Braavos, while training to be a faceless man, to forget her past and become no one, fate delivers too much temptation for Arya to resist.
I figured once I got the orders to go to Braavos, I was in trouble.
It was just too poetic, Meryn Trant turning up.
I generally thought that she was going to say no. The faceless man wants her to be no one because she's on a mission. She's got to do something else. She's no one. That's not her. But she does, and it's wicked.
Not since the Red Viper's death has there been a more gruesome offing.
Maisie and I, very early, we decided that we really had to go for it.
Bears all during his season 3 dip with Brienne of Tarth. It's the perfect place to cleanse your soul as well as your body.
Up until this point, Jaime Lannister has been this kind of strutting cock of the show, the Kingslayer who is the best in Westeros with a sword.
You're supposed to get me to King's Landing in one piece. Not going so well, is it? No wonder Renly died with you guarding it.
For him to lose his hand, he basically loses every bit of that kind of massive ego he used to have.
That was unworthy. Forgive me. You protected me better than most.
Don't you mock me?
I'm apologizing.
Jaime is delirious, his stump has gotten infected, and he's been through all this stuff with Brienne, so there's this sort of bond, and she's judging him. She has contempt for him, and he doesn't want her to have contempt for him, because in some sense he's come to admire her, and he wants her approbation, and it all comes out in that scene.
You all despise me. Kingslayer. Oathbreaker. Man without honor.
It's a revelatory scene. He's revealing his viewpoint of what happened and his great sin, which, of course, according to the kingdom, was killing Ares, the Mad King.
told me to bring him my father's head. Then he turned to his pyromancer. Burn them all, he said. Burn them in their homes, burn them in their beds.
Jamie in this scene is digging deep and expressing feelings and memories that he has never expressed to anyone. Maybe not even to himself.
Tell me if your precious Randy commanded you to kill your own father and stand by while thousands of men, women, and children burned alive, would you have done it? Would you have kept your oath then?
Everybody assumes he is one kind of person until this moment, and all it takes is a moment of vulnerability and honesty from this man to change all that.
You can't help but root for him, and you can't help but root for the friendship, the relationship between him and Brienne.
You think the Honorable Ned Stark wanted to hear my side? He judged me guilty the moment he set eyes on me. By what right does the wolf judge the lion? By what right?
The Kingslayer!
For him, it's his lowest point, but as a human being and as a viewer, it's his highest point.
Jamie. My name's Jamie.
It's one of the best written scenes in TV that I've ever seen.
Some of the dialogue that was written there was incredible. I've never seen better.
At number 17, two shadow advisors, Littlefinger and Varys, hold a war of words.
Forged in the fiery breath of
I love those two. I love their interactions.
It is flattering, really. You feeling such dread at the prospect of me getting what I want. Thwarting you has never been my primary ambition, I promise you. Although who doesn't like to see their friends fail now and then?
This scene is really menacing. It's got an ominous feeling that something dreadful is about to happen.
Your confidant, the one who fed you information about my plans, the one you swore to protect. You didn't bring her any enjoyment.
Littlefinger's like one of my secret favourite characters just because I love watching him, but I don't like him.
He's really just all-round terrifying man who you do not want to cross. But I think most people underestimate him and find that out way too late.
He's like a snake. You have to watch him all the time.
Luckily, I have a friend who wants to try something new, something daring.
I think Varys has a better moral compass than Littlefinger.
I did what...
He's possibly one of the few people in Westeros who has an agenda that's bigger than himself.
The realm. Do you know what the realm is? It's the 1,000 blades of Aegon's enemies. A story we agree to tell each other over and over till we forget that it's a lie. But what do we have left once we abandon the lie? Chaos. A gaping pit waiting to swallow us all. Chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder.
It's the chaos that is like Littlefinger's cloak in a way, and it covers a lot of his moves, and he slips his wily way through things. He thrives in chaos.
Many who try to climb it fail, never get to try again. The fall breaks them.
He really drives the point home that nothing really matters except power.
This is the game, the way he likes to play the game.
And some are given a chance to climb, but they refuse. They cling to the realm, or the gods, or love.
And this is the point at which we realize he's one of those power players and that he means business.
Only the ladder is real. The climb is all there is.
It summarizes so well what Game of Thrones is all about. It's a game of power.
This is where Game of Thrones sets its stall out, that this probably isn't a show that you're going to want to watch with your gran.
It's shocking because you don't think things are going to happen to kids.
Everything that went wrong for the Starks happened when he climbed that wall.
At number 16, it's the moment that sets everything in motion.
Bran, you know, he's like his father. He wants to get out there and do stuff. So basically he starts climbing the walls of the castle.
They set it up, don't they? You know, don't go climbing, all the way through. It's very, very clear that I suppose it's a seed planted that we then see why.
Well, I was about 10 when that happened, so being a 10-year-old boy getting to go on a wire was pretty cool. And when you're filming it, it's kind of intense. I don't know if I quite grasped, perhaps, the intensity of the scene.
It's beautifully paced in that you know he's going to find something at the top of this tower and eventually comes across a scene that a young man should not see.
You can see that Jaime's having sex with somebody, but then you kind of think that it must just be some wench that he's picked up from Winterfell, and then eventually her face is shown and it's his sister.
It's really funny because he's kind of like that's that like prince that little girls draw. And the strange thing about he's this sugary character, but he's sleeping with his sister.
Obviously, I didn't see any of it while we were filming.
Stop!
But yeah, you certainly got that these were strange people.
Are you completely mad?
He saw us.
It's all right, it's all right, it's all right.
He saw us.
I heard you the first time.
In the very first episode, we're shown that one of the key relationships in the whole series is taboo. It's the most forbidden relationship of all.
You know, Game of Thrones, incest, violence, whatever, it's sort of not normal, but it's sort of, you know, the language of the programme now. But at the time, certainly it was hugely shocking.
Quite the little climb, aren't you? How old are you, boy?
10.
10.
Jaime is trying to please his sister. She's in a complete panic. The fact that Bran has seen him because she knows what it means, but he knows what it means too, and he knows that if the incest is discovered, not only will he and his sister be put to death, but their 3 children may very well too.
I think it's a fantastic moment because it sets up the tone of Game of Thrones so well. In a conventional drama, Jaime might cuff Bran round the ear and say, "Go away, don't tell anyone about this." But no, what he does is far more shocking.
And he does it almost with a punchline.
The things I do for love.
As a viewer, it's one of those shocking moments that you possibly think, no human being would ever do that to a child.
In a lot of other series, children would be this untouchable, innocent, pure thing who some bad things might happen to them, but not horrific things. In Game of Thrones, horrific things happen to the children just as much as the adults.
Next, a game-changing moment as a would-be queen gets a powerful and unlikely new ally.
The brilliant thing about Game of Thrones, you have these surprises, you have these shocks, you have these epic moments, and then you have extraordinary interplay between 2 characters.
Tyrion's the one that's the brains behind everything.
I think they might be a pretty good combination of someone that is morally good and strong and powerful, Daenerys, and someone who is a bit sneaky.
I brought you a gift!
Captured by Ser Jorah and delivered as a peace offering, Tyrion could well be meeting his maker. His family has bad blood with the Targaryens.
I am the gift. It's a pleasure to meet you, Your Grace. My name is Tyrion Lannister.
I like the balls on the guy, you know, just walking up to this ruler, knowing who he was, knowing who she was.
Jaime is responsible for killing her father.
He's called the Kingslayer specifically because he slayed the Mad King, Daenerys' dad. There was potential for a bit of bloodshed there.
How the hell can Tyrion get out of this?
I am the greatest Lannister killer of our time.
So I should welcome you into my service because you murdered members of your own family?
into your service. Your Grace, we have only just met. It's too soon to know if you deserve my service.
He's so bright. He plays it so well. And she's so bright. And she understands what he's saying. He's going to absolutely ally himself to her. And between them, they are an extraordinary force.
She's the one that will move them into the future. She's the one that has no barriers.
And then these two exiles talk bad dads and politics.
My father, who publicly sentenced me to death. I'd say his thoughts on having me killed were abundantly clear.
That's a very good alliance. I mean, after what Tyrion's gone through, killed his dad, I mean, he don't want to be associated with his family anymore. To pick a family other than the Lannisters, I think he'd done a good choice.
I know what my father was. What he did. I know the Mad King earned his name.
It was actually kind of lovely, like seeing those two talk, because they do both have this sense of morality.
I'm not going to kill you.
No? Banish me?
No.
So if I'm not going to be murdered and I'm not going to be banished...
You're going to advise me.
I think the really important thing about Game of Thrones is nothing's black and white. And I think Daenerys recognises that actually this might not be the most ideal pairing, but there is something that she can use him for.
He will tell people when they're a fool, and I think Daenerys sees that and knows that he's not going to be a sycophant.
And Daenerys has a plan for revolution.
Not impossible. Not enough.
Lannister, Targaryen, Baratheon, Stark, Tyrell. They're all just spokes on a wheel. This one's on top, then that one's on top, and on it spins, crushing those on the ground.
It's a beautiful dream. Stopping the wheel. You're not the first person who's ever dreamt it.
I'm not going to stop the wheel. I'm going to break the wheel.
She wants to break the wheel, which is bad for Tommen and everyone around him that's Lannister and Tyrell, because that means she's coming for them.
It's Season 2's epic Battle of Blackwater, and Tyrion's tactic of wiping out the opposition in one fell swoop has almost worked. But with King's Landing still under siege, it's time for him to step up and rally the beleaguered troops.
In that kind of world, as a man, you have to be tall and strong and powerful, and he is powerful, but in a different way. You know, he's fighting with his mind more than with his sword.
Prepare to land. Your Grace, the dwarf has played his little trick.
I think in Game of Thrones, what it shows is that anything can happen to anyone. You have handsome princes who are the best swordsmen, get their hands cut off. You have children who are thrown from the top of towers. And here you have Tyrion, who is always seen as a half man and mocked, finally have this heroic moment.
They say I am half a man. But what does that make the lot of you?
The only way out is through the gates. And they're at the gates.
There's another way out. I'm going to show you. Come out behind them and fuck them in their asses.
First of all, it's incredibly brave. He doesn't have to fight. There's no expectation of him to fight because of his disability. He steps forward and says, I am but half a man, but here I am standing up beside you. That's what I think like a once more into the breach speech would really be like.
He's good at talking, isn't he? That's Tyrion's thing. He could talk himself out of any situation and he could sell anything to anybody. That's his thing. He's clever and he's eloquent and he's witty and he knows how to connect with the men that he needs to connect with.
Don't fight for your king, and don't fight for his kingdoms. Don't fight for honor, don't fight for glory, don't fight for riches because he won't get any.
As an heroic character, is a brilliant piece of plotting, but it also draws attention to what we expect from heroes.
This is your city Stannis means to sack. That's your gate he's ramming. If he gets in, it will be your houses he burns. Your gold he steals. Your women he will rape.
I was lucky enough to be right next to him when he was doing it. And I don't know how many times we shot it and reshot it, but every time Peter did it, it was incredible.
When he says these words that I wrote for Tyrion, it's just like I pictured them in my head just like I heard them in my head when I was writing them.
There's our brave men knocking at our door. Let's go kill them!
The gates were shut on either side, and the tension that built up within this, it was honestly, it's like everybody in the extras, myself, all the other guys, we would have followed them into battle right there and then. We were convinced everybody's blood was boiling and everybody was ready to go. It was quite remarkable to see the difference that one guy talking can make to so many people.
At number 30.
Come together and help each other.
Probably was cheering. Probably in my living room, like, ah. I can't wait to see what, happens to them.
If they've survived that jump, as I hope and presume they have, I'll be looking forward to find out what happens.
No good will come of that. I mean, they should never have left.
I think they're going to be okay.
When we started watching Game of Thrones, we thought that the story was going to be about Ned Stark. We're used to looking at this sort of drama like cowboy films, where there is the white hats and the black hats, and he was a white hat, he was a good man, and you don't kill off the good man in the first series.
At number 12, it's the moment that redefined TV drama and stunned audiences and cast members alike.
When I first, and I'm not the only one, read the script, I got to the end, it says he has his head cut off, and I thought, no, I've missed something. I've only been reading Pycelle in this script, I'm just going to read it properly. So I started every single word of the script, because I knew I'd missed something that would explain this ending. No, I hadn't missed anything at all.
It was at that moment you realised what Game of Thrones was really about and what risks the show was willing to take to kind of entertain and torment their audience.
I am Ned Stark, Lord of Winterfell and Hand of the King.
Wrongly accused of treason and aware that Sansa has struck a deal to save his life, Ned, for once, puts honour aside and throws himself on the mercy of the king.
I come before you to confess my treason in the sight of gods and men.
He does do what has been suggested to him, and that is that he does confess to treason. Although sticks in his craw, obviously, but he does do it. Because he's been given reason to believe that if he does that, okay, he may end up in the wall, but he will not be killed. But then he didn't reckon with Joffrey.
My mother wishes me to let Lord Eddard join the Night's Watch. Stripped of all titles and powers, he would serve the realm in permanent exile. And my lady Sansa has begged mercy for her father. But they have the soft hearts of women. So long as I am your king, treason shall never go unpunished. Sir Ilyn, bring me his head.
Nobody knew, not even Cersei, knew what Joffrey was going to do there. And that's the power of drama, basically, and the shock. It's the shock value. That's when you realise nobody is safe in this world at all.
Now that Joffrey's in power, you see that there's a whole shift in this Game of Thrones. This is the person now in control, and he doesn't have mercy, and even his mum can't control him.
When he actually says, give me his head, that's when his mother goes potty. And that's when he really revels in the discomfort that he has caused every other single person in that square.
And no one is more distraught than Ned's youngest daughter, Arya, who bears witness to the horrific scene from agonisingly close by.
The way the execution is shot, and you see it with her watching, makes it far worse.
She's very brave. She does want to look. You know, her sister Sansa's crying, but she is just staring at her dad, willing it not to be.
Her desire to save her father with direct action is really part of her character. And of course, defines her, at least in that moment, from her sister, who had also tried to save her father, but by negotiation.
That moment was just so well played out. You just thought, oh, surely he can't die. Surely they can't behead Ned Stark.
You
You think, well, there's going to be something. There'll be someone will shout something. Arya's going to get there. There'll be something, definitely.
When he was ordered to be executed, I still didn't think it was going to happen. Up to that point, I think, along with everybody else watching it, they didn't quite understand the brutality of the show.
This is not a Robin Hood movie here where 3 guys are going to swing over the fence and beat the 37 guardsmen who are surrounding the merry man who's about to be hung. I try to be a little more realistic than that.
And then they just do it.
The birds take to the air, and just the way it was filmed, it was tremendously powerful. That was the only scene that really has brought a tear to my eye.
That was the worst TV experience of my life up to that point. And Game of Thrones has given me at least 3 or 4 more of those. It was, that was a bad day in the Lightbody household.
Don't rule her out. Do not rule Cersei Lannister out. She will be back. Be afraid.
It was just as powerful watching it in the flesh as it was seeing it back on screen.
It's such a difficult scene to watch because I love Tyrion. I mean, he's one of the good guys. He is the good guy.
It was so emotional. All of us should feel guilty what we have done and what we are doing to him.
It's the trial of the century. Tyrion Lannister, wrongly accused of regicide, is about to take a deal which would save his life, but see him living out his days at the Wall. But then the prosecution wheels out its star witness.
I almost cried. I didn't want to do it.
This man stands accused of murdering King Joffrey. What do you know of this?
I know that he's guilty. He and Sansa planned together.
Silence!
I talked to the producers and I said, please, could you just change it somehow? She really loved Tyrion. And now she's there and lying.
I was his whore.
I beg your pardon? You said you were his...
His whore.
I cried in that scene. I get emotional just thinking about it, because seeing her come in and betray him like that and calling herself a whore when you know that she's so much more than that to him is so difficult.
Shay. Please don't.
I am a whore. Remember?
For Tyrion, his lover's betrayal is too much to bear. It triggers an outburst which leaves the court and us reeling.
You admit you poisoned the king?
No. Of that I'm innocent. I'm guilty of a far more monstrous crime. I'm guilty of being a dwarf.
You're not on trial for being a dwarf.
Oh, yes I am. I've been on trial for that my entire life.
He finally has an opportunity and an audience to address what everyone has been thinking about him his whole life. And, you know, here's a man who risked his life for these people, who's always fought against the prejudice that he faces from his family, probably from everybody that he meets, and he's innocent.
I did not do it. I did not kill Joffrey, but I wish that I had. Watching your vicious bastard die gave me more relief than 1,000 lying whores.
And of course, at the same time, the audience, and we there at the time, were experiencing the pleasure of seeing him at last saying what he really thought, which we know he must have been thinking for the whole of his life. And to hear him doing that at that scene was almost orgasmic to watch.
I wish I was the monster you think I am. I wish I had enough poison for the whole pack of you. I would gladly give my life to watch you all swallow it.
Cimarron!
It's so moving and it's so powerful. It just sort of pours out of Peter's heart. And it's an amazing, amazing moving scene.
At number 9, it's the moment fans have been waiting for since the birth of those little fire breathers. Will Daenerys finally take to the skies on Drogon Airways?
On the back of a dragon has always been the symbol of the Targaryens coming to claim their power.
Ever since those eggs hatched, we just knew that one day she was going to get on the back of a dragon and fly off and cause havoc.
Throughout Game of Thrones, there is one love story that has gripped us all. One girl and her dragons.
Love dragons. Dragons are great. I'm Welsh.
The way they've handled the relationship between her and the dragons has been epic, because you believe it.
If you remember back to when she was a 13-year-old little girl, the journey she's come on is incredible.
Well, the dragons in themselves are hugely symbolic because they represent power as much as anything else. And she possesses a great deal of power as a potential queen, as an actual Khaleesi, and the dragons in some way symbolise that.
It's in her blood. You know, that's the story we've been led to believe, that it's in her blood. Therefore, of course, she's going to connect with the dragon and she's going to have a love and respect for it.
More so than the other two dragons, I think. Drogon's always kind of been there for Dany. He's her #1 baby.
But Drogon gets too big for Daenerys to control, and he abandons her.
You want to see Daenerys being strong and powerful and taking charge because she genuinely wants to help.
But her good intentions aren't working out, as she is also losing control of Meereen.
She ends up in this conflict. She realises that to get people entirely on her side and to run the place, she's either got to repress them or entertain them.
And so, against her better judgment, she reopens the fighting pits.
Those pits are the ultimate Roman Emperor-style bread and circuses distraction. As long as people are watching the sport they love, they're not going to start complaining about the politicians.
It is unfortunately taken advantage of by the Sons of Harpy.
The Sons of Harpy are the enemy within, who oppose the new regime.
Protect your queen!
And they decide that it's going to be the perfect ambush, and they spring their trap.
They are surrounding her completely. And this is Game of Thrones, so you think, well, she's probably going to die.
I mean, especially when compared to what moments before, we thought, that's it. She ain't getting out of this one.
There's a moment where she closes her eyes. I think she was looking for a saviour. I think she might have felt like, I need Drogon. If I knew Drogon was here.
And woof, in he comes.
That's really what you want for this TV spectacle. You want these dragons coming out of the sky.
And it's such an uplifting moment. It really was.
Classic kind of from the jaws of defeat.
That was magical. That was very magical.
She, of course, who thinks that Drogon is beyond her control now, suddenly they're reunited, which is an incredibly powerful moment.
When the dragon has all the spears in his back and she pulls one of them out, I love that. He's such a tough creature.
And so, after 5 seasons, the young Targaryen finally climbs on board.
About time she got on that dragon.
Who doesn't get chills when they see that moment? And all of a sudden, she's flying off. Huh, yeah, it's classic.
Who wouldn't want to fly off on a dragon, let's be honest.
How exhilarating was Daenerys flying off?
Her actually becoming a dragon rider, that's her claiming her birthright, more than I think anything else we've seen her do.
It was the money shot of season 5, was seeing Daenerys ride off on a dragon. It was what we've been waiting for ages.
I really just want her to get over and start fighting the others, because that would be really interesting.
I kind of just feel bad for all of them that Daenerys just hopped on the dragon and then just was like, later. Like, sorry, I just gotta get on here. Wish you had your own dragon, but you know.
At number 8, it's a moment of brutal Shakespearean betrayal that took us all by surprise.
If it was the 50th episode of Game of Thrones, we should have known better than to think that Jon Snow was safe.
By the end of season 5, and against all odds, Jon Snow has risen to the lofty height of Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. It's a position that's ruffled a few crow's feathers, but his bold scheme to unite with the wildlings against the White Walkers is one step too far.
All they've ever known is these guys are the enemies. We do not fraternize with them. We do not go anywhere near them. They don't come anywhere near us. And all of a sudden, Jon is taking it upon himself to break down that barrier.
First Ranger, you have commanded Castle Black.
Lord Commander, it is my duty to tell you I believe this mission to be reckless, foolhardy, and an insult to all the brothers who have died fighting the wildlands.
People are not ready for that. The Night's Watch especially are not ready for that because that's what they've spent their entire lives doing.
I mean, I think Jon Snow was on the right track trying to make peace with the wildlings, but you know, obviously the others didn't. It's one of the great things about Game of Thrones. Somebody could be morally right and trying to do the right thing, but people just can't see it. They're blinded by their own ignorance.
Jon Snow has been a beacon of nobility and pride.
He's the ultimate good guy, the guy who's fought so much, who's loved and lost, who has maintained his honor, his dignity. He's the most noble.
Jon Snow even takes a young orphan under his wing, mentoring him as he once was.
Come, try it again. Drive at me. Keep your shield up, or I'll ring your head like a bell.
He's obviously chosen Ollie to give him a chance, you know, and to develop him as a man.
Feel that way about Jon. He probably has enjoyed him being his mentor and just thinks, I don't really want to do this, but I have to do it. Really, I mean, really a beautiful moment.
I found it really upsetting. He wasn't allowed a brave death. It was a tragic betrayal. He gave his life to the Night's Watch, and they repaid him by killing him.
I am very firmly of the opinion that Jon Snow will be back.
But he ain't gonna come back as himself, is he? Maybe he'll come back as a White Walker.
Is Jon Snow dead? How many people have asked me that question? I don't know.
This scene's brilliant because it matches the shock and surprise of what happens with how graphically it's portrayed.
It's got everything. It's got tension. You don't know what's going to happen. It's beautifully shot. It involves all your favorite characters. And of course, it's utterly heartbreaking, which is what you want from a Game of Thrones scene.
Having faced down his dad in court, Tyrion has now turned to his last resort, a trial by combat. With the Mountain representing the crown, the odds are stacked against Tyrion, whose life now rests in the hands of his champion, Oberyn Martell, the Red Viper.
Looks like very light armor.
I like to move around.
You could at least wear a helmet.
I mean, trial by combat, you can get someone to fight for your honor, so whether you're wrong or not, as long as they win the fight, that's what matters.
Oberyn, yeah. He was super hot, which I appreciate as a viewer, but also smart and mercenary and creepy and all of those things. I thought he was an awesome character. I wanted him to last a lot longer.
So on the one hand, you've got the prince, the dashing, charismatic, handsome prince. And then on the other side, you've got the Mountain, pretty much the embodiment of hatred and brutality.
You're going to fight that?
I'm going to kill that.
You don't know that much about him. All you know about him is the fact that he's a bad, bad, bad guy.
He was enormous!
The Viper has his own agenda for taking on the Mountain. Vengeance.
I'm going to hear you confess before you die. You raped my sister. You murdered her. You killed her children. Say it now and we can make this quick.
You think you know what's going to happen. And in this case, you think right up to the end you know who's won. And it was what you thought. Well, you thought it would be difficult, but he would win.
You killed her children!
The mountain's on his back, he's literally coughing up blood. You know, the prince is kind of looking around at the adoring crowd, and you think for a second, okay, he's done it, he's really done it.
Before he kills him, he needs to make him realise that he's been brought to justice for doing these things.
In Westeros, the pursuit of justice is as futile as anything else, that you can try and call people to account, but something will catch you out.
No, you can't die yet. You haven't confessed. Say it. Say her name. Elia Martell.
And he spends a little too much time gloating and bragging and trying to embarrass the Lannisters in public, in their own backyard.
Who gave you the order? Say her name!
Unfortunately for the prince, his confidence is his undoing. He wins the battle, but he has a moment of hubris where he lets his guard down and he looks over to his girlfriend, very pleased with himself.
And by this stage, you know very much what show you're watching, so you're expecting it not to go well for the Viper because he's talking too much. So from that point on, I thought, oh God, just shut up, get him, kill him, please stop, please don't do it.
Say it!
We all know what happens next.
Oh, God, it's awful.
Elia Martell! I killed her children! Then I raped her! Then I smashed her head in like this!
That's quite a lot of energy to do that disgusting thing.
I'm like, no, I can't watch. I'm like, no, I can't believe it's going to happen, please.
The most horrific, brutal murder.
Yes, this smashing his head. That's one of the fantastic deaths, I have to say. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was gross.
Tyrion Lannister, in the name of King Tommen of the House Baratheon, first of his name, you're hereby sentenced to death.
Always wear a helmet.
This was the showdown to end all showdowns.
In Westeros, you can't get family therapy, can you? The purest form of conflict resolution is to kill your dad.
At number 6, it's the nerve-jangling face-off between Tyrion and his father, who not only sentenced him to death for a crime he didn't commit, he also slept with the woman he loved.
Tyrion, put down the crossbow.
I think it's very significant that he's on the toilet. It sums up that he's trapped and he's vulnerable.
There's no guards in the loo, not where you're sitting having a crap. There's no guards around.
But it's very humiliating for him as well. It's a private moment.
This is how you want to speak to me? Shaming your father has always given you pleasure, hasn't it?
All my life, you've wanted me dead.
Yes. But you refuse to die. I respect that. Even admire it. You fight for what's yours. I'd never let them execute you. Is that what you fear? I'll never let Ilyn Payne take your head. You're a Lannister. You're my son.
It's so tightly wound, this scene, because Tyrion's obviously, he's at the end of his rope. What's brilliant about him, he's so well portrayed, you can see yourself doing this.
I loved her.
Who?
Shay.
Tyrion. Put down that crossbow.
I murdered her. With my own hands.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
She was a whore.
And Tywin was like, who? The whore? And, you know, still insulting him, you know, doesn't respect him and his love.
We'll go back to my chambers and speak with some dignity.
I can't go back there. She's in there.
Are you afraid of a dead whore?
Yeah, I think Tyrion's sitting on years and years and years and years of anger and frustration and resentment.
And then, after he's been shot by the first arrow, Tywin's true colours come out.
You're no son of mine.
I am your son. I have always been your son.
When he releases that arrow, he releases everything into him. It's really So silent, so powerful.
One of the things I really love about Game of Thrones is there are characters who appear who you know are going to, at some point, meet a sticky end. And it's just a question of how and a question of when.
Daenerys! At number 5, it's a golden oldie from season 1, as Viserys gets his reward for trading his sister for an army in order to reclaim the Iron Throne.
Go on, feel the fabric.
He's basically pimped out his sister. And he's quite proud of that.
She's the only bargaining chip he has. He doesn't have any wealth anymore. He doesn't have any armies, but he has her, who he can trade to this horse lord.
We go home with an army. With Khal Drogo's army. I would let his whole tribe fuck you. All 40,000 men and their horses too, if that's what it took.
He threatens her sexually, time and time again. And at this point, she's a real ingenue, you know, she's really small and young, and it's just disgusting.
He was utterly, utterly revolting. And you felt so, and that was the moment that she escaped from her shell, when she became the woman and not the kowtowed girl.
Much to her brother's dismay, Daenerys and Drogo end up getting on rather well, and she becomes pregnant with his son. Jealous, desperate and drunk, Viserys finally decides to call in his debt.
Daenerys! Where's my sister?
Viserys has to be the most deluded, arrogant character in the history of TV. I mean, why would you start a fight with Khal Drogo, of all people? The man is huge, and it's in his tent, and all his friends are around, so you're never going to win.
Keep away from me!
Viserys, please.
Very often you get a scene like this where you think, oh, right, okay, it's all about to go horribly wrong. It's normally when someone asks for something they can't have, and Viserys is asking for the thing he will never be allowed to have, which is to be king.
Tell him I want what was bargained for, or I'm taking you back. He can keep the baby. I'll cut it out and leave it for him.
He just completely underestimates not only Dany, but Khal Drogo.
What's he saying?
He says yes. You shall have a golden crown that men shall tremble to behold.
There was nothing more satisfying than seeing Khal Drogo play along with him and just say, tell him he can have it. Just see Viserys' face.
But that was all I wanted. What was promised?
The stillness in him and the knowing is petrifying. He has all of the strength and he knows exactly what he's going to do.
You don't exactly see it coming, but you know something pretty bad's going to happen. It's actually probably the most gruesome death in the Hall of Game of Thrones, which is really saying something.
Look away, Khaleesi.
No.
Daenerys shows absolutely no remorse. She absolutely despises him, and there is no love lost between them.
I think that's one of the first scenes where you see like her inner strength. You know, she's definitely got I think she's got a rod of iron inside her.
A crown for king.
I love that sound as well. You know, dunk. His head hits the floor. It's so good.
Oh my goodness, it's one of the great cathartic moments in the whole of modern TV drama, I would say.
I think everybody who watches Game of Thrones was hoping this day would come. There must have been great cheering across the realm the day that Joffrey died.
At number 4, it's the wedding that is everyone's happiest day, except for the bridegroom, who marries his great beauty in Westeros, but will never make it to his bridal bed.
Very good, very good. Off you go.
Marjorie and Joffrey's wedding is one of those weddings that we all have to go to where there's no love in the room. Nobody's there for any other reason other than they'd probably be executed if they hadn't showed face.
A gold dragon to whoever knocks my fool's hat off!
He's a bully. He's a miserable kid with absolute power.
He thinks he is completely untouchable.
Everyone, silence!
Just when you think that it can't get any more ridiculous and he can't be any more rude and awful, he then brings on his dwarf show.
I give you King Joffrey, Renly, Stannis, Robb Stark, Balon Greyjoy, the War of the Five Kings!
The director intentionally didn't show us what was going to happen before that scene because he wanted to get the real looks of horror on our faces.
He pushes and he pushes and he pushes and he keeps on pushing at people and insulting people and offending people.
Joffrey is the ultimate sadist. I mean, that's where he gets his pleasure from. So for him, this actually is a way to spend a happy day. So when he gets the opportunity to humiliate Tyrion, he seizes it with both hands.
Uncle, you can be my cupbearer, seeing as you're too cowardly to fight.
Your Grace does me a great honor.
It's not meant as an honor.
The way he treats Tyrion is totally despicable. He sees it as an opportunity to wield his power because he can. You know, be my cupbearer, pick that up.
You really feel Tyrion's humiliation. You feel every single blow with him.
Kneel. Kneel before your king.
It's a slow bleed. How much more humiliation is he going to incur at his own wedding day?
I said, kneel!
And how long is it going to go on before he finally gets it?
And get it he does. After 3 and a bit seasons of Joffrey's evil antics, his chickens, or in this case pigeons, have finally come home to roost.
My hero.
He was pushing it far too far, but then, of course, then you realise why. It's because they're setting it up for this wonderful moment where he begins to choke.
If it please your Grace, Lady Sansa is
No.
very tired.
No, you'll wait here. I'm...
Your Grace.
There's nothing.
He's choking!
Oh, you poor boy!
Oh, just the best possible way that he could have gone.
His face becomes completely bloodshot in the most unpleasant way. I can't imagine there's anyone sitting at home who's not cheering. In fact, standing up and possibly opening bottles of champagne when that happens.
I thought it was absolutely magnificent because it obviously really hurt.
Jack Leeson did an incredible job with that scene. The look in his eyes, it gave the scene a poignance.
That's one of my favourite deaths because not only do you see a kind of gruesome death, but you see that character's soul go to hell.
Personally, I would have liked his death to have been slightly more drawn out. I mean, it must have been painful and he did bleed from the eyes, but, you know, you could have given me another full minute of Joffrey, you know, choking on his own blood. I would have been happy with that.
It's the first time that we really see Dany take control. You start to see, like, you know, proper badass Dany.
At number 3 is the mind-blowing moment Daenerys completes her transformation from innocent girl to warrior queen. All by stepping into Khal Drogo's funeral pyre, along with 3 dragon eggs.
She has just burned one of her enemies, but it underlines Daenerys' newfound ruthlessness and willingness to wield her power.
At the point in which she walks into the fire, she has no family left. So she's lost her brother, her husband, she's lost her child, and she's made a decision, and she's like, it's almost her walking into her, like, destiny, I guess.
Another of my favourite scenes. She's walking under the fire, you don't know what's going to happen. There's a witch being burnt, screaming to death on the right. So much happening.
Obviously, walking into the fire, it looks suicidal, and in a way, a part of her is dying, her innocence is dying.
I think there's a possibility she's walking into her death. I think if you've watched the show closely, there are moments, even from early on, when she's in a really hot bathwater where she doesn't feel anything. When she sees her brother die by having molten gold poured on his head, she's actually quite scornful.
He was no dragon. Fire cannot kill a dragon.
Even though you suspect she might live, you don't suspect that dragons are suddenly going to come out of it.
I thought for a split second she was going to turn into a dragon. But of course she was going to make it.
Thanks to the Targaryen dragon blood running through her veins, Daenerys survives the inferno. And when she rises from the ashes, she's not alone.
What was very important when we were staging that scene is that these creatures are extraordinary creatures, the likes of which have not been seen in hundreds of years. And so when they're born and you see that look on Ian Glenn, who plays Jorah Mormont's face, that look of just astonishment, and it's as if the dinosaurs were roaming the earth again. It's as if you and I saw, you know, a Tyrannosaurus Rex, just right there. That's what this is.
It drops hints all the way along that, you know, the dragons are where the real power lies. So when they emerge, you know that this is going to change everything forever.
I was on set for some of those scenes that we filmed in Malta. It's all done with computer animation, so I'm seeing Amelia acting out these scenes with like a green tennis ball and a stick. But seeing them when the CGI wizards had gotten hold of them, crawling over her shoulder and all that, it was perfect. Yeah.
Blood of my blood.
Well, it's almost like a rebirth. But she's no longer Daenerys Stormborn. She's Mother of Dragons, literally.
They're frolicking on her naked body, 3 of them clearly her children. You couldn't get a more powerful emblem of the strength of this woman, and that's why all the men bow down in front of her.
You don't see if she's naked or not, because you just see the power and the pride in her eyes.
You see this adult woman in the most vulnerable position, but with this growing strength from inside, and everything's been left behind, it's been burned away.
They worship her. When she's with the dragons, she is the mother of dragons, and a pretty scary mother.
A glimpse of these creatures is where it all began in season 1.
We see them before the titles in the very first episode. And people talk about them as if they're just mythical creatures.
But we've had to wait until season 5 to see the White Walkers unleash their full might. At number 2, it's a big moment for the Night's King. It starts oh so quietly. Jon Snow has ventured north beyond the wall to Hardhome to urge wildlings to join him.
How many are with us? 5,000?
Jon Snow's trying to get all the wildlings out of there, onto the boat. And then we come.
Shut the gate!
There's no way that just shutting the gate is going to keep us out.
This zombie foe is the more terrifying because nobody knows what they actually want.
I guess they want the world. They want what everyone else wants. Winter's coming, and the cold starts going further south, and they'll move further south, won't they? So it's kind of defending against them.
They definitely don't want peace and love. That I can tell you. So during the attack, the Night's King is up high on a ridge watching it with some of his commanders. Not fighting, of course. He wouldn't need to, not with his best soldiers down there.
And it's now that our hero finally comes face to icy face with the enemy he fears above all others.
Jon Snow knows that Dragonglass can defeat the White Walker, and there's Dragonglass in the room, but he can't get it in time.
It's just his stillness, it's just how rigid he was as he jumped down. I thought, oh my God, he is terrifying.
And I think it's very rare we see a scene on anything, movie or TV, where we really don't know what's going to happen next moment. Every moment is completely unexpected.
Jon Snow catching his sword with the White Walker's sword, and it doesn't break. So he's like, whoa, this thing can't kill me. This sword is like Dragonglass, it's flaring still. And that's the moment even the White Walker sees that now it's like a challenge, now it's a competition. And then he kills him.
The Night King sees Jon kill one of his best men. He's observing what's going on. I think it's with a look of curiosity. There's a curiosity and intrigue with who this Jon Snow character is.
I thought it was a fantastic moment when Jon took on the White Walker, facing certain death and defeating him.
But it is a fleeting victory. Jon Snow is about to witness the full might of his enemy's arsenal.
You have a king of the White Walkers who clearly knows how to do strategy.
In fact, the Night's King has the most fearless army in existence.
They're not just wandering around killing, they really are battling. They're fighters.
Soldiers with nothing left to lose.
The Whites are basically a reanimated dead.
We're coming down off the cliff, falling, but even the way that they moved was quite extraordinary.
All of these bodies just pile over the wall, just taking a shortcut, like pile over this cliff and just pile onto the bottom, and then all of a sudden...
They're crucial to the White Walkers. I mean, terrifying, an army that will do anything. Has no fear, even of death, obviously, because they're dead.
I watched it about 4 or 5 times in the period of a week and held my breath every single time.
Then, as Jon is forced to beat a retreat, old Blue Eyes ventures down for his curtain call.
That great moment at the end where I raised my arms. When I read that in the script, it gave me goosebumps.
Jon Snow's petrified. He realises the scale of what is actually happening.
It's a great moment. It's one of the greatest moments I think I've ever been involved in.
And he's looking directly at Jon Snow and he's like,
"Come at me, bro," kind of moment where he raised his hands.
That extraordinary moment when he did that and he got those people to rise. And
it was amazing, absolutely amazing.
Well, what more terrifying thing can you see than a whole new army suddenly come from the bunch you just killed? It's a challenge to Jon, and look what I can do.
How do you fight that?
The White Walkers are the real threat to every single man, woman, and child in the kingdom. They are the real threat to every living thing.
we're just feeding their army, that's all that's happening. You lose, they gain.
You don't have a chance.
We've reached the climax of our countdown, and in a show rotten with skullduggery, gut-churning endings, and eye-gouging vengeance, there's only ever going to be one winner. Remember to breathe. It's the Red Wedding.
I knew what to expect, and yet I watched it like...
I was screaming at the television. Absolutely screaming at it.
It's such a shock. It really is such a shock. It's one of those moments where you can't believe it.
You may now cloak the bride and bring her under your protection.
It started so well. As Catelyn's brother Edmure gets hitched to Roslyn Frey, things are finally looking up for the beleaguered Stark family.
There's almost like a seed of hope for the family, that possibly they've taken a turn for the better.
King Rob has made amends for slighting Walder Frey by reneging on his deal to marry one of his daughters, and spends the evening planning for the future with his beautiful, pregnant wife.
Boy or girl?
I don't know. But if it's a boy, I know what we should name him.
Oh, do you? It seems to me the father should have some say in his son's naming.
Eddard.
But this being Game of Thrones, peace doesn't reign for long.
Everything has consequences, and that sense of the burgeoning, the relentless accounting of consequences from actions is what makes it so compelling.
Catelyn, in her heart, knew that you do not break a promise. You do not break a promise if you are the King of the North, and also you certainly don't break it to Walder Frey. The first moment that initiates the change of thought for Catelyn is when the band strikes up. It heightens her awareness. It's like if she was an animal and she smelled blood. This was the start of it. What is going on here?
The tension is built so brilliantly in that scene. It really is. There's something not quite right.
The growing menace.
I feel I've been remiss in my duties.
And then slowly you get the feeling that something awful's going to happen.
And she spots that the man next to her is actually wearing chainmail under his outfit, and she tries to warn Rob.
And then finally, it's Armageddon.
Shockingly brutal, utterly devastating, and horribly compelling. The Red Wedding is arguably the most traumatizing moment in TV history.
It's brave, it's ballsy, it's insane. Everything that we've come to expect and love from Game of Thrones.
The whole goal there was for me to build it up to the point of most jocular, most happy, and the most powerful moment, and then pull the rug out from under the audience and actually hit them in a way that they'd be emotionally scarred by that. And that was my goal, was to do just that.
The king in the north arises.
It really is such a shock. It's one of those moments where you can't believe it. It's the cruelty of it, and it's the relishing of it. And it's the fight for survival right up until the end. There's still something honourable and powerful and wonderful in that grief. Lord Walder! Lord Walder, enough!
She's just visceral, isn't she? She's wild, completely full of maternal instinct.
Rob, get up! Get up and walk out! Please! Please!
And why would I let him do that?
For her, it's not even about her own life at that point. Let him go, or I will cut your wife's throat.
At every stage of this scene, you think there is going to be some kind of bargain here.
Maybe there's some hope, maybe there's some redemption.
I'll find another.
Mother.
The Lannisters send their regards.
And the only point that she goes, fuck it, is after she watches her son get killed.
The horrible caterwaul that comes out of her, it just sticks with you. I mean, it's very real.
Her resignation when she's standing there, it's just a beautiful stillness, a peace, a sort of surrender. It's extraordinary TV.
Well, there you have it. The way you voted for it. The 20 greatest Game of Thrones moments. Heroes were lost. Firepower was launched. And a thirst for royal vengeance unleashed. If that's left you hungry for more, fear not. Season 6 is coming, and scores will be settled.
It just seems almost like an unwritten contract that we have with the people watching the show, that things will keep growing, and the complexity of the biggest set pieces especially has grown tremendously.
When you look at the giant set pieces in the show to date, most of them have been from the books, and Hardhome is mentioned in the books. We know that something terrible happened there, but we don't know what happened. So this was an opportunity to show the audience something that is going to be fresh for everyone, whether you're a book reader or not a book reader. This is stuff that no one has seen.
You trust me, Jon Snow? Does that make me a fool? We're fools together now.
Production-wise, Thrones always felt massive to me from the start, and Hardhome feels bigger in VFX, CGI, and bigger in scale than the whole of episode 9 last year.
It's amazing, it's huge, and it's extremely ambitious, and it costs a hell of a lot of money. And it's all for the fans.
It is through everybody having that same attitude of how can we succeed?
It is very much an all-hands-on-deck situation.
It's very different from the other battles we've seen before, and it's way harder to shoot. We didn't know how big it was going to be until we actually got into pre-production with it.
Whenever I read anything that's like a big battle sequence, you've got to treat it the same as you treat a dramatic scene. Is like, what's the story, whose story is it, whose point of view is it? So kind of attacked it full force. I went away and I storyboarded for about 3 weeks, and I storyboarded the entire sequence as written originally, which was huge, which was probably 2 or 3 times as big as it is now as the thing we actually shot.
Initially, the scene was written even bigger than it was, and it just got to the point where we were up against it because we wanted to get everything and we weren't sure how we were going to do it.
It suddenly became apparent that there was a whole section of it that didn't need to be there, that was there because we were playing to the idea of a battle. And that made me realize that what I was really interested in and what the story was and what the thread was, is it wasn't a battle, it was a massacre.
It's not like the other battle scenes we've had, whether at Castle Black or Blackwater, where you've got 2 opposing armies coming together. Really, you've got the army of the dead coming and the wildlings putting up resistance for as long as they can and then getting massacred. And so it doesn't have the feel of a battle so much as a horror movie sequence.
If you look at it as a massacre and you don't look at it as a battle, it changes all sorts of things. And then from that, the idea came out, well, what if we also restricted the point of view? What if we only told it from just the main character's point of view, and namely from Jon's point of view, because it's Jon's story in the end. And so that's where the idea of the stockade fence came in.
We were all horror movie fans, and once he mentioned it, we all had this instinctive, immediate reaction that the thing that's on the other side of the door that you can't see is always going to be more terrifying than something you see in some giant sweeping helicopter shot.
The whites come to the fence, you hear it all, it's all about sound design, it's all about the reactions on our white spaces, but it's not really something you see. You just catch these glimpses of them to start with, and we hold off from seeing the monster for as long as possible. So now the monster behind the door, the massacre, the point of view, the restricted viewing, all of those things started to make sense, and they coalesced into what ended up being Hardhome. And we had something that was shootable, and now we had something that utilised our limitations as strengths instead of weaknesses.
It's difficult to build a large-scale settlement that looks old and lived in and worn down by the elements. One of our most successful sets was Castle Black, and it served us really well over the years. It is so successful because it has that 360-degree lived-in quality.
This set is built in the same area as Castle Black is, and so when I first came here, we went to see Castle Black, and it's a huge set, it's enormous, and I was in awe of the size of this set and the size of the pieces of timber and everything. And I looked below, and there was this set that was about 60 or 70 times larger directly below it, so that was fun.
The rock quarry that we're using now was not the first choice. And when we started right at the start of the year, we actually thought that we'd be shooting in Iceland.
We started in Iceland, and then when David and Dan wrote the sequence, I think Chris and I almost sent a simultaneous email to each other of, oh my God, we can't do that in Iceland.
The scripted activity was just too great to take the show on the road, so we had a template for what it should look like, and we will shoot backgrounds in Iceland that will extend this set, so this set will exist in a place in Iceland when you see the final product.
We're going to match this up with a 3D model scan in Iceland, so the two get blended together. We have these opticopters that fly over and take photographs and stuff. They're tiny little things, you know, like little drones, I think, and they just fly over and they take photographs, and from the digital data from the photograph, you extrapolate a 3D model from it.
Castle Black already exists within that quarry, and so it eventually ended up being the perfect spot, right on this existing lake.
Hardhome, just by its very name, should be a tough environment. So it was just a matter of turning this location and winterizing it into an austere, volcanic black beach.
We were wanting something that was particular to the Hardhome space itself. And what that meant was our guys were able to take, you know, skins and branches and pieces of timber and things that would have been found and create these little dwellings out of them. And instead of there being a consistency amongst them all, there was also a feeling that each of them was quite separate and individual, that they had been made by the people who were actually sheltering there.
And there was a lot of sketches being done, a lot of reference in different kind of enclosures, encampments around the world, and looking at different kind of places where refugees would be.
We were looking for a different building style than we had used before. So we were looking at very sort of Nordic construction. And what that meant was that we were able to establish a building style in the huts that we hadn't seen before on Game of Thrones, with the beautiful grass roofs, for instance.
We're supposed to just feel a little bit more thrown together and repaired and older, and I mean, the docks are a little bit rougher.
This is where full credit needs to go to Tom Martin, the construction manager. He is an absolute genius at finding reclaimed timber, and that timber is 100 years old, I think.
It's all real timber, and it was also quite a challenge for construction to get these materials because the whole turnaround was so sudden.
The art department and construction have done a really great job of turning what was a notion into reality.
Everything had to be positioned by machinery because it was massive. We build it for real because the action is for real.
To think it was built for one episode. I mean, you know, most of these sets, they're built for many, many episodes. Hardhome is kind of special because it's an exterior set and it's built really for about 20 minutes of one episode.
First time I walked on set, I was, and I mean this in the best sense ever, humbled by just the scale of it and the dedication everybody has to make this look fantastic.
Deb Riley has done such an amazing job of conveying a sense of desperation with the Hardhome set. You sense the plight of these people as soon as you see the conditions to which they've been reduced to living.
Jon Snow's come to this place not knowing what to expect, and I think it must be incredibly shocking to land in this environment.
I've been told it was a good set. I didn't really realise they'd paint an entire quarry white, which was quite impressive.
It's great having so much of this stuff actually on set, practical. You know, we've got, I think, the best visual effects team in the world, but whenever possible, anything we can get in camera, we want to get in camera, because in the end, there's just nothing that's going to feel more real than reality.
The scale of the fence itself that gets sort of knocked over by the whites as they come in. It's a real credit to our SFX department, the way they sort of made that movable ramp, which could get pushed down and go back up again.
We talked about the stockade fence, thinking maybe we'll get some of it real and the rest will be filled in by green screen. They ended up building a real stockade fence. I mean, they just put it up there and it looks fantastic.
The fence with 12 tons in total. And when it goes, it really goes, you know? So it takes a lot to slow it down.
It's 40 feet long. We pushed it over with hydraulic rams. The fingers of wood at each side, they have cables that run through them, which are fitted to electric releases, so that when the releases go, those sections come down as a kind of finger effect. One of the aspects of the effects that Miguel was very keen to have was a very strong weather effect, which comprised falling snow and fog.
The smoke machines we have are the biggest smoke machines you can possibly buy. You know, we have 5 of those.
It took about 3 weeks to snow this quarry. We had 2 crews here doing it.
Effects-wise, Thrones is never easy. It's one of those things you have to get very patient with this because the look of Thrones is so important that you have to get it right, and it's just as important as what you're doing.
When the smoke comes in and the snow comes in and the wind comes in, it's like so powerful and noisy and wild that you don't need to try to act. It's just, everything is just very real.
When you get the right level of smoke, it feels like you're there because also it blocks out the roads and the greenery and the rest of the crew. You're in the thick of it.
The smoke itself is great, and I think the whole concept of the army arriving and bringing this weather front, this massive fog, is fantastic.
The challenge is obviously being, trying to get a consistency to the smoke, and we have some very big smoke machines here, so we can cover the wind directions and have smoke out on the water. But as in a true Game of Thrones nature, we don't let real nature throws at us stop us. So we shoot out here in plus 30 miles an hour winds and sideways rain, and the smoke just looks great. And I mean, it helps that it's uncomfortable.
Oftentimes on set with Game of Thrones, the conditions are so challenging. It's cold, it's wet, it's miserable. So when you see people being cold and wet and miserable, they're not acting.
The day it was meant, like shit was meant to get real with the fans and the snow and everything. This huge gale came in and it changed the whole energy and dynamic of the scene we were doing and made it very Apocalypse Now.
The day we started with the attack from the Whites, the weather just went crazy and it was raining like hell. So you have like 600 people standing in the rain for 12 hours a day. And the spirit is still high as this. I really like the fight.
The thing about Christopher, you don't have to build him up, you have to just rein him back a little bit. He moves so well, he's awesome, he doesn't pull much, and the stunt guys love it.
We've developed Tormund's way of fighting, and in Norwegian we have a saying about like the Vikings that they go berserk, and that's what Tormund does. He just goes crazy.
Most of the things are like Rowley is shouting, hit him harder. That's my main goal and my main task.
I have a big fight sequence in this, which I'm thrilled about. Actresses don't usually get to do a lot of fighting, and I haven't done a lot before this, so I was thrilled. They've given me a brilliant, really long fighting sequence where I get to kill off 12 huge men. It's definitely one of the harder things I've had to do, because even though we've rehearsed it really well, when you add the costume, snow, wind machines, could barely see anything, and just, when you look around and you see 600-800 people at work, you don't want to be the one messing it up. So I was definitely pumped up, but also probably the most nervous I've been in a while, yeah.
She was fantastic. So she starts off with a sword, ends up with double axes. She's not done a fight sequence before, but she used to be a dancer, so she moves incredibly well. She takes instruction really well, and she's pretty tough, to be honest.
The brilliant thing is, after she's chopped up about 12, 15 grown men, here comes along 6 small children, and she can't bring herself to do anything, even though they're also white and end up killing her. It's just something wrong about attacking children.
We were just trying to make it evil. It seemed only fitting that the people that should kill her should be child whites, and David and Dan were absolutely adamant from day one that they wanted her to die at the hand of a bunch of munchy children.
We have something we call the mayhem sequence, where like when the whites attack us, people just try to save their lives. When the whites come, everybody wants to be on the ships, but not everybody can be there at the same time. So it became a chaos. And when we were shooting it, it was chaos. You can't fake chaos.
In terms of people on set and extras, this is by far the biggest I've ever been part of, and they're really good.
We held a boot camp and we brought in 220 extras, and then we basically taught them how to do a sword fight as a white and as a wilding or a night watch person.
The background artists on this are some of the most hard-working, brilliant background actors I've ever had the pleasure of working with. They're here for longer hours than we are. They're in prosthetic makeup now for longer hours than we are. And they give it their all, and it's what makes a scene like this work. They're as much part of the process as any of the actors are.
The longer the sequence gets, the harder it is to include everything. So we were starting to ask, what are we going to lose? Because we just don't have enough time to shoot everything. The easiest thing to have lost would have been 1-1, the giant. But we love 1-1, and we just thought he'd be a really fun part of the whole battle.
1-1, who's obviously a giant, so he's represented on set by a green stick, which is about 15 feet high. The pole is great because it gives you a reference of what it's going to be. It's great for the operators because they know where to frame and how to frame up. Then you trust the guys to make it look great.
4-1-1, smashing through the side of the lodge. We had a huge rig on rams and cables, and we sort of slides along a track and punches out of a breakaway section. So we took a section away, we molded it, and made it all out of foam, biscuit foam, so it's a hard foam, and sent it down the track to burst out, and at the same time have air cannons to blow a lot of debris.
We only had one go at testing this because it's so expensive.
It's not like we can burn this place down once and walk away from it. It was a fire that had to last for a week. So we're constantly setting the place on fire, constantly extinguishing it.
With any good battle, it's trying to come up with some individual moments that are going to stand out that you remember. There's Jon's fight with the White Walker. We called him White Walker X.
We wanted to make it just brutal. Like, this isn't a fight, this is just an annihilation.
We had to have these two guys fight when one of them was clearly much stronger than the other, and their swords couldn't touch for the entire fight or it was over. And so it presented all of these challenges. Well, how can you actually have a fight if that's going to happen? Unless you get rid of his sword. And so that's what we decided to do very quickly, is try and get rid of Jon's sword so that there could be more of a cat and mouse chase rather than an out-and-out fight to which there'd be no match between the two.
There are wires involved. We actually have Kit's doing most of it himself. He's doing all the fighting. He runs up onto the mezzanine, and then he does his own backfall into a small box rig, which we cover in green. So he's done his own fall, which we've rehearsed. And then what we do, we put the double on a wire, and we decel the double into the floor, into the real floor. And then we just use a clever cut where the double hits the ground on a wire.
Given one more beat, the White Walker would finish Jon off. And as it happens, Jon discovers something that we didn't know, and it saves him.
Jon has a sword. He's killed a White Walker. So clearly, he's very, very dangerous, not only physically because of his prowess as a fighter, but because of his sword, and also the knowledge that he will get from that moment. This is a very, very, very serious adversary that they could be facing.
The Night King sees this, and he sees Jon kill one of his lieutenants, and it's kind of a, well, this kid's interesting. This kid's actually possibly a threat for me. So he's very much looking at Jon then when he does what he does at the end of the episode.
I think the script was very explicit about it. It says that the Night King and Jon share an unpleasant exchange that is not comfortable for Jon. And we called it for ages, you know, it's a non-verbal fuck you.
I think it's a terror Jon has never known before. I mean, they're seeing the White Walkers, and then they're seeing the White Walker King with an army of 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 undead.
The final image of the Night King raising his hands, was all David and Dan. They said they wanted it to be like an orchestra.
He's the conductor raising his orchestra of the dead.
The makeup for the Night King is great. I was really, really impressed with that.
I'd seen it in previous seasons, The Night King, and we just assumed it was like a visual effects. And then we're all in the put-me-up tent, and Richard walks in his gear, and I went, oh my God, whoo! And it's quite frightening when he's up close.
Seeing him, you know, in full garb with the contact lenses and the sharp, pointy teeth and stuff, yeah, it's just scary.
This is a pretty freaky place to be right now because you have like dead people walking around. It's pretty scary.
On any one day, we've approximately got around 80 to 85 whites. We have 45 background masks, which are just like pullover masks. And we have about 30 hero foreground makeups.
David and Dan were very, very specific. There's a line in the script that says 10,000 whites came running across the field towards us. And I said running because they're not zombies, goddammit. That's their line. I think that's a direct quote.
In general, an average call for us on Game of Thrones is about 3:30 in the morning. The more extensive makeups are about 4.5 hours in length. The whites, we've got various stages, starting from what we call like super fresh, which are our guys who'd only been dead for a week or 2 weeks or so. And then we've got what we call mid-decomps, which and these guys they've been dead supposedly for about 6 months to 2 years or something. So they're much more extensive makeups. And we have full facial appliances. They've got sort of receding hairlines and sort of small lace hair pieces. And then we have what we're calling our extreme green screen whites. And all the green screen is basically removed by visual effects.
The hardest thing for an animator, any animator of any experience level, to really capture is human movement. Climbing, jumping, you know, stabbing.
One of the interesting tools that Joe Bauer, our visual effects supervisor, came up with for how to do the whites was that he felt we shouldn't be trying to animate the whites just by eye, that it should always be based on a live-action performance by a stunt player. And so we worked very closely with Rowley, our stunt coordinator, to come up with ways for the whites to be doing things that are inspired by our human stunties.
I had to shoot reference that we could give to the animators, and we could circle a performance and say, this white should be doing this white should be doing that. We knew that 1-1 smashing out of the long haul was going to be a really neat moment.
When 1-1 is batting whites out of the way, we have stunties on a pull rig being thrown out of the way by our special effects and stunt team. And they just did an enormous job that provided great and organic and realistic behavior for us to copy.
I spoke to Stuart, special effects, very early on, and I said, Stuart, we need something that's this shape, that's the size of a full-scale giant, and we need to put these guys in suits with tracking markers on them, color-coded, and they need to mimic basically the moments where 1-1 is interacting with the whites.
We called it the Christmas tree. It's a 16-foot tall cone covered with padding and cargo netting, and then our stunties were throwing themselves at it from platforms. And then that performance was something that was hand-rotomated or copied by our visual effects team and applied toward the behavior of CG skeletal whites.
It was a lot of fun to watch these guys in green suits whipping themselves at this bucking bronco Christmas tree. But there's a lot of that kind of craziness that goes into making something like this.
Since Game of Thrones is such a visual effects heavy show, those guys really get involved from the first moment. And a lot of the times, even before any director or a DP comes on, they start prepping and start visualizing.
The most important thing that visual effects can bring to any project is scope. To create a wider vista than the camera can capture, than the production designer can physically create in any world.
There's two directions that we look that are very scopy. One is there's a very, very big beach. It goes straight out for probably a mile at least, and then it jogs to the right out into the ocean. We had 50 ships docked offshore. And then when the storm hits, it comes over the distant mountains, and it's a great way of showing just how big these spaces are and how big the storm front is. It has to look real, but it has to behave in a way that's not only unnatural, but it's also really scary and really threatening. You know, it needs to feel like a nightmare. The White Army is actually attacking from two sides. They're attacking from the large camp and hitting the stockade wall. And then they're also coming over the edge of a cliff and just dropping down into that same fishing village, getting up and continuing.
One of the pieces of the sequence that worked out, I think, very well is the whites, the lemming whites, we called them in production, was the ones who run past the White Walkers and fling themselves off the cliff. It felt like such a strong visual way to put across how implacable and unstoppable and single-minded these things were.
For the lemming jump, the stunt team had 12 stunt performers dressed as whites, and we did a crane move that traveled with them as they were running, and then they leap over the side onto green mats. So we have to do an on-camera digital handoff for each of those guys, and then everybody else is CG. Hard Home was emotionally challenging just in the volume, and you know, it's a 22-minute epic, and every single shot is us. Every single shot. You know, we have almost 500 shots just in that one sequence. We added volumes of people. We had to add extra White Walkers. They all have the glowing eyes. We get very close on the Night King. We added an ice effect that looks like, you know, a layer of ice on them, plus the horns that are part of the design. We made those translucent as if they're, you know, almost an ice sculpture.
When the Night King raises the dead at the end of the Hard Home sequence, there were quite a few dead to be raised. And so we have a number of extras, but not nearly as many as we're going to need ultimately in the look of the final shot. So we'll handle that through tiling, where we'll take our group of extras and we'll repeat them in different places within the scene so that it looks as if there's a bigger crowd, and those are pieces that are photographed, so they're very realistic. And then we'll fill in the background with CG characters.
It's always exciting to see these impossible ideas that were floating around in your head and on the page show up on a screen looking better than you ever expected them to look.
Hard Home was unprecedented, even for Game of Thrones. It was a challenge for every department.
All of the departments have had to, you know, work very closely on it. You know, special effects, stunts, art department, visual effects. We're all so entwined in how that place works. It's been a real labour of love, I think, for everybody.
I always knew this was going to be a special sequence. There's always a big set action piece for my character. I didn't really expect it to be that big.
Doesn't even feel like TV, doesn't even feel like film. It feels like it's real, actually.
There's a rhythm to the writing that is very satisfying to listen to, it's very satisfying to work with, and it's very satisfying for the actors to play. You know, a good script is a good script, and you can't really beat it.
It was such a beast to slay, and we're very fortunate to have such gifted people and such dedicated people working on these big sequences.
It's just probably the most intense 15-minute sequence we've ever put together, so I'm just very proud of everyone who worked on it, because a lot of people worked incredibly hard. By the time people are watching this, they will already have seen it and judged it, but we're very happy with it.
Lord Stark, you must be thirsty. I promise you, it isn't poison. Why is it no one ever trusts the eunuch?
Poison has existed since the beginnings of history. But even more than poison itself, rumors of poison have existed through all of history. In our modern world, poison is easily detected. They didn't have that kind of technology in the Middle Ages, not even my maesters have that kind of technology. So if the poison has fairly subtle symptoms, then it's difficult to tell that someone's been poisoned.
What sort of doom does the king face? The same sort as Jon Arryn. The tears of Lys, they call it. A rare and costly thing. As clear and tasteless as water, it leaves no trace.
One of the events which triggers really the whole series is the poisoning of Jon Arryn.
His sickness struck him very hard and very fast.
So much of what follows is triggered by that act.
And you're quite certain he died of a natural illness?
Well, what else could it be?
Poison.
What sort of man would dare?
I've heard it said that poison is a woman's weapon.
He was poisoned by his wife, by Lysa, at the behest of Littlefinger to destabilize the realm and to create the kind of chaos in which he might rise further.
You gave me those drops and told me to pour them into Jon's wine, my husband's wine. When you told me to write a letter to Kat, telling her it was a Lannister.
And killed him very quickly, thereby setting in motion the whole Lannister-Stark conflict.
My lady, you are from Westeros.
You have the honor of addressing Daenerys of the House Targaryen.
Dany is with child, and the word has reached the Seven Kingdoms, and Robert is furious with this.
I want him dead, mother and child both.
He knows that a true-born Targaryen child would be a great threat, particularly a male child.
I have a dry red from the arbor, nectar of the gods. Let me give you a cask.
Poisoning the wine is certainly a big motif throughout the show, and you'll see it used again and again.
Taste it, my lord. Tell me that that is not the finest wine that has ever touched your tongue. You first.
Some poisons have, or were thought to have, a positive medical effect.
Thank the gods. I haven't had a proper shit in 6 days.
Sometimes the cure was worse than the disease, and the purgative would end up killing them, but, all of these things were tried.
2 drops with water daily.
So there were reasons to have poisons around more than just, I might need to poison my mother.
One of the more memorable poisoning instances for me is when we first meet Melisandre and we're in Dragonstone for the first time, and the maester there tries to poison her.
He thought Melisandre was dangerous and was leading Stannis down the wrong path.
Shall we drink together?
He's actually willing to sacrifice himself and both drink from the same cup, not realizing that Melisandre's magic will protect her and won't protect him.
Melisandre had taken steps so that the poison didn't affect her, but killed him.
It's interesting to see how it works for some and backfires for others.
Everyone, silence! There's been too much amusement here today. A royal wedding is not an amusement. A royal wedding is history.
Poison is considered a very devious way to kill someone because it's a way to kill someone without the victim knowing who did it.
The Queen of Thorns was not going to let her beloved granddaughter marry this monster. He was the perfect opportunity to get rid of him.
Good.
Hopefully in a way that would make it seem like choking. She layered in all sorts of false leads, too, so that if people did suspect murder, they wouldn't suspect her, or House Tyrell in general.
He's choking! Joffrey! He poisoned my son. Take him!
Poison is one of the more terrifying ways to kill people just because it's the silent, deadly killer from out of nowhere.
You may not have enjoyed watching him die, but you enjoyed it more than you would have enjoyed being married to him. I can promise you that.
This season, I think it's important because Oberyn was such an important figure last year, and Oberyn was a master poisoner.
Some believe the king choked.
The king was poisoned.
I hear you studied poisons at the Citadel.
I did. This is why I know.
But a Red Viper was charged, famously, with poisoning his weapons.
You arrive at the capital an expert in poisoning. Some days later, my grandson dies of poisoning.
Rather suspicious. Why haven't you thrown me in a dungeon?
We find out later that he did poison the spear that he used to fight the mountain. So even though the mountain kills him, the mountain is in the process of dying before he even gets around to that.
Bloody mortals.
The cause appears to be manticore venom.
It is the death's head manticore.
Oberyn has given him a very potent and painful and slow-acting poison.
You can save him.
Stand a chance. You should know. The process may change.
Will it weaken him?
Oh, no.
Very well, then.
The death of Oberyn and the aftermath of his death is so important for season 5 because we're seeing people who are willing to use poison in their quest to avenge him. And you're seeing people like the Faceless Men with Arya who will use any method to kill someone. It doesn't matter how you kill someone. It's not the means, it's all about the ends.
These are for the Godswood tree. We did it in the first year, and then every year we kind of top up on them. On this run, we've done about 300 of these branches. So they come in, obviously not looking like that. And the next step, which is the flock, which is like almost a velvety texture. It's a small little machine. This is a little generator or transformer, so it creates a power surge. Once you've got your branch and you want a leaf flocked, you lay your bond on, which is a bit like a glue. And then with your clip, your crocodile clamp, once that goes on and your machine's on, you're sending a charge through the whole branch essentially. But because you've got some glue on and it's moist, the particles would tend to be charged onto that. That's holding a current, in other words. And then you've got your wand, which holds a little capsule of the flock. These particles then get charged up and they're pulled towards the leaf. And then basically when you come away and you take your clamp off, the glue takes over, and once it dries, the flock's on there forever. Once we've got our flocked sort of 3 or 4 leaves, we then pick out roughly 60% of the rest of it and spray those with 2 different colors of spray paint, and that is then the finished product.
Mance Rayder, you've been called the king beyond the wall. Westeros only has one king. Kneel and live.
This was my home for many years. I wish you good fortune in the wars to come.
Kieran brings so much humanity to that role, and there's a reason they're called the Free Folk. For them, everything is about freedom, and they will fight to the death to preserve that freedom. And it's not just a philosophy for him, it's very much the way he has lived his life and how he'll die his death if he has to.
Mance has this thing about his whole sense of dignity. It's about the non-betrayal and the belief. And once he's seen to bend the knee when he's taken all these people together and says, we don't do this, once he shows that to the people, that's gone.
You told me you weren't here to conquer. You told me your people have bled enough.
That's right. I don't want them bleeding for Stannis Baratheon either.
We created an interior in Banbridge where Mance was being held, and that was a beautiful scene with Jon Snow before Mance is sort of let out.
When we first met, you were my prisoner. And now, for our last meeting...
This doesn't have to be our last meeting.
No, but it will be.
I have this incredible scene between Mance and Jon Snow. It's a small scene, it's 2 guys in a room, but it's compelling. There is mutual respect, yet they cannot find any common ground to avoid the inevitable.
How will they do it? Beheading? Hanging?
They'll burn you alive.
Bad way to go.
He really wants to go out with some measure of dignity. And he knows that his friends are going to be watching. He knows that Tormund is there and all his other generals are going to be there. That's kind of like the final indignity for him, is that he would die in that way in front of his friends.
The stake when Mance is burned is something that was concepted. The Castle Black brothers have a very particular way of building these stakes. We've used a very similar building technique. It's a very rudimentary and simple construction. I think it's a very powerful image to see that sort of sitting there in the courtyard.
I knew I wanted to have that opening be gentle and a long take. The scene opens on a crane shot that starts with a single guy walking out of the door, and then it pulls back to see the entire Castle Black courtyard with a stake in the middle of it. And there's just a moment where you go, oh my God. And the shot evolves just so beautifully. The camera operators and the actors all did an amazing job.
The big special effects issue there was the fire that happens, because we're constantly setting fire, constantly extinguishing it. Just a big turnaround.
We burn him at the stake by stacking up the flames and the camera and Kieran. We create the illusion he's on fire.
The idea of trying to shoot that last scene, it's kind of complicated, because how much writhing in agony do you portray? How much fear do you allow to be shown? So I was very dependent on Michael directing. You're not connecting with another character, an actor, where you're looking in their eyes, you're listening to them, you're going with them, you're on your own.
A CG arrow that Kit fired, and then a plant on which VFX remove, and then it appears.
one of the best decisions Jon ever makes. It's not a safe decision. He believes in the honorable right thing and believes in mercy.
Every once in a while, these scenes come up, Mance's death scene being one of them, where you get a much larger collection of main characters together than you normally do on this show. Mance's death was one where you got to set that day and you realize that there are all these people that you know and love, and they're all actually there. It was sad because this scene represents the end of his character on the show. It's always sad to say goodbye to somebody, and Kieran as much as anybody. I think in his final episode, he delivered the finest work he's ever done on the show. He was just such a wonder to watch.
Hello, goodbye.
How we doing, Hall H? Everybody good? Thank you so much. It is such an honor to be here moderating the Game of Thrones panel. It is one of my favorite shows, not just now, but ever. All right, everybody. Let's bring out the cast. She's Brienne of Tarth. Please welcome Gwendolyn Christie, everybody. He's Davos Seaworth, Liam Cunningham. Give it up for Liam. Melisandre Carice Van Houten. Marguerite Tyrell, Natalie Dormer. She's Sansa Stark. Give it up for Sophie Turner, everybody. He answers to Theon or Reek. Give it up for Alfie Allen. He's one of the directors of Game of Thrones. He directed episodes 9 and 10 this year. Please welcome David Nutter, everybody. She plays Gilly, Hannah Murray. He's Samwell Tarley. Please welcome John Bradley, everybody. Arya Stark, Maisie Williams is in the hall. He plays Varys. Please welcome Conleth Hill. And she is an executive producer. Please welcome Carolyn Strauss, everybody. And Liam, you can come out now as well. Thank you, Liam. Yeah!
You killed my ball.
So this is very exciting because it's always fun to see all of you guys together, because on the show, of course, we don't see you together enough. I met Maisie and Sophie last year here at Comic-Con, and it's safe to say you guys see each other in San Diego more than you see each other in Westeros. Is that?
I think that's true. We see each other more outside of the UK than we do.
And is it nice this time of year when you can get together and actually see the cast? Is that nice for everybody?
Yes, sir.
It is? Does anybody want to say otherwise? Does anybody want to say that they prefer it more when they're separate? So here's a question I have. How many of you, because we're at a very interesting point of Game of Thrones where we are now up to the books. So how many of you had read the books? How many of you were so curious as to the outcomes of your character that you read ahead? Did anyone? Gwendolyn, you did the reading?
I did the homework.
All right, that's very good.
For once.
And now for everyone else, did fans of the books ever ruin it for you? Did you have to prevent that from happening when people came up to you? Is that something that you were at risk of?
People would come up and be like, Arya goes blind. And even though I didn't know, I'd be like, yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm so aware of that. And pretend I knew when I didn't.
And now that I guess the question for everybody, now that we are now beyond the books, what level of secrecy are they holding you guys to? Is it more intense than ever?
Yeah, far more intense.
Like when you get scripts, do you have to sign like 1 million things?
We can't tell you.
You can't even tell me the level of secrecy. You can't even say there's a lot of secrecy. No. Wow. If Varys can't tell you, no one can tell you. So obviously that's got it for Carolyn. For you guys, that has to be a huge issue this year.
Major issue.
And fans of the show, I think, will follow every piece of casting, every location photo. Do you have to try harder than ever now that you are sort of at the book point of the show?
Yeah, I think we're at the book point and we're at the, the world and the balance point. And so I think that, You know, we've always tried to maintain a level of surprise for people who watch the show. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
With every, season it gets more and more.
What are the conversation levels like with George at this point and the writers of the show? Like, how much are you talking to him to...
I think they talk to him, as much as they have before. I mean, he's laid out a lot of sort of what his thinking was going forward, and then Dan and David have jumped off from there.
Got it. I will say it's so wonderful to see all of you out of costume, because some of you have to wear some pretty lousy costumes. You guys just wear sacks, basically, at the wall. So it's great. But Alfie...
I have a loincloth.
Seeing you the best, seeing you with 10 fingers and 10 toes is just outstanding.
Thank you.
Yeah. You went through probably one of the roughest seasons, the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, I think seasons 3, 4, and 5. Yeah, they're all pretty rough.
If you were a little nicer in seasons 1 or 2, maybe.
Wow.
That would have happened,
Yeah, well,
Lesson for us all.
I think one of my favorite things about the finale was, Theon finally making a choice, make a decision. Was that exciting for you to read that and see that you actually got to move in a different direction than you'd been in?
Yeah, I mean, it was, as an actor, it would have been interesting to see sort of where it could have gone if perhaps it would have gone darker, but yeah, it's nice to sort of see some light at the end of the tunnel for the character. I am a little bit human.
John and Hannah, so happy Gilly and Samuel finally got together this year. That was everyone is. The will they or won't they of Game of Thrones, the Sam and Diane, if you will. But you have to be worried, because most times when people hook up on the show, it doesn't portend good things. What are you looking forward to with your relationship moving forward? Where do you hope that it goes?
I think Sam would just happily accept more of the same.
Yeah.
I don't think Sam's one of those people who tries to inject a bit of exotica into his sex life.
Yeah.
I think he's kind of happy.
So is that maybe when he's looking at all those books, you think that's actually what he's reading about?
Oh, he's hollowed the books out and stuck a few little sketches in. Well, I've said it before, that I think up until, Gilly, Gilly,
Yeah.
I always thought that Sam used to think about sex the way that most people think about space. In so much as it's something that goes on, he's got nothing to do with it. I think he used to see it from a purely kind of academic standpoint. Nothing that he thought he'd have. He's fascinated by it in a kind of childlike way, but nothing that he thought he'd have. It's similar to the way I am with dancing, or something like that. But the thing about when Gilly turned up and gave him a bit of practical, it just occurred to me, I don't know enough about science to be able to finish that metaphor off. So, thanks again, school.
I wouldn't be surprised if the whole season 6 is just you walking around saying, "Did you hear? You hear my excellent news?"
Well, he's done that before. He killed a White Walker, swanned around for a few seasons telling everybody about it. Nobody believed him. Do you know what? Such as Sam is, I reckon even less people will believe this.
Yeah. David, you directed the last 2 episodes, which were fantastic. The end of episode 9, the dragon in the fighting pits, one of the most incredible scenes in the history of the show.
Thank you.
How much longer did it take to shoot that than a normal episode?
Well, all I know is for that sequence, it was 2 days of second unit, and then we had 10 days of first unit that we shot. So it was about a 10-day experience for myself that I just wanted to physically survive it, and fortunately I did.
And the dragon trainer just must be essential.
You got to have a great dragon trainer and good treats.
Yeah. Natalie, Marguerite, one of the toughest characters to figure out. I feel like she's at a sympathetic place now. What I love about her, the more she dislikes somebody, the nicer she is, which must be fun to play.
A lot of fun, yeah. Yeah. Poor Marjorie, they left her in a cell.
Yeah. That's where I guess we're just going to find out how she's...
Yeah.
Poor Marjorie.
She needs a shower and a coffee, I'm sure by now.
I think you should do a crossover with Orange is the New Black, I think. just throwing that out there.
I think that's an excellent idea.
Gwendolyn, I don't want to blame you for the things your character did,
Go ahead.
You had one job, which was just to keep an eye out for a candle in a window. One job. You blow it, and let's be honest.
I didn't blow the candle. I didn't mean that. I mean...
Too soon.
What can I say?
I feel like
I had to stand for 3 months watching a window to wait for a candle.
Well,
I mean, give me a break.
Hey, you don't have to take these oaths. You know what I mean? Like that's how
Sometimes
oaths
I just
work.
take on a little bit too much.
I'm
What
just
can
saying,
I say?
I hope season
I'm
6
ambitious.
we see Brienne's peer review, because I think she's gonna not like what she hears. Varys is one of the most interesting characters, both in the book and in the show. So you're wonderful playing. I so enjoyed you this season with Peter. You guys are a great team. When you're sort of playing, because it's very hard to even know reading the books, is Varys a very good person or is Varys a very bad person? Is Varys looking out for himself? What are you, not knowing fully, because we don't really know, like what are you rooting for in Varys as you play him? Like what do you hope is his core?
Good, ultimately. But it's one of the reasons I didn't read the books is because you can only play the moment. You can't play knowledge. You can't play, I know what's going to happen next, or you know. So you just play the moment, and then that takes the responsibility off you if you're just playing the scene.
I think we could all use a Varys in our lives. I think.
Yeah.
He's made me a lot of money.
Yeah, there you go.
Money.
Liam, we'll say, I mean, look, we don't really know. Stannis wasn't on camera. As you guys do a really nice job. You kill a lot of people right off camera. I really appreciate that. Gives us something to talk about online. I'm very happy for Davos because I think, I got to be honest, I don't...
You're happy for Davos?
I'm happy for Davos because I think with Stannis out of the way, you could lighten up a little bit. I don't think he was a great friend for you. And I'm just looking for, I want to see Davos smile a little bit more. And I think getting Stannis out of the way will be good.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Especially when he finds out what that did.
Yeah. Yeah, again, you didn't have to, you should have stayed, and it wouldn't have happened.
Oh, yeah, hold on. I tried. I did try. I think these people will back me up here. Did I try?
Yeah.
The people have spoken. I thank you. Good night.
Carice, it's
Yes.
a lovely to have you here. This is, give it up for Carice. True story, I know I've told this before. Carice and I have known each other for almost 20 years.
Oh, here we go.
And Carice, when Carice was auditioning for this, she called me because she knew that I would be the kind of person who would have read these books and asked me if I thought it was a good part. And I told you it was, right?
Thank you, Seth.
You're welcome, and that's all I've been waiting for.
Just a little thank you.
One of the scenes that Liam just referred to, one of the toughest scenes I think for everybody to watch this year, was the burning scene with Shireen. Was that I assume for everyone here, there has to be a great level of levity meeting you all backstage. Obviously, you are not as dark as the characters you play. Was that a hard scene to shoot, though? I mean, was there levity on set on a day like that?
Great fun.
Not at all. Not a levity kind of a situation. It was tough weather, tough setting, and everyone really needed to feel what was going to happen to this young girl. And we were all into it. The actors were all into the sequence. The extras were into it. And it was just an amazingly powerful moment that I think it was just turned out just right.
It was a very powerful scene. This year, there seemed to be, a couple of times where the audience thought things were rougher than they were even used to. And in a place, when you spend a lot of time in Westeros, it seems weird that you would be ever caught off guard. Were you surprised by that feedback from the audience?
I think people like to get involved in a conversation, and I think also the more you know your characters, the more painful it is when something bad happens to them. And somebody like Shireen, when that happened to Shireen, I mean, she's such a really interesting, and you just feel for this girl, and but just because it's painful doesn't mean it's not a good point of the story. And I think it's it wasn't done because of the pain, but it was done in spite of the pain, I think.
Now, every time, most times, obviously, a character dies on the show, you've always been able to blame it on the author, George R.R. Martin. You say to actors, look, this was in the book, there was nothing we could do. Now that you're a little bit ahead, do you feel like people are lobbying you more?
We're still going to blame him.
Okay, you're still going to blame him. That's good. Well, the Sophie and Maisie, I would just say, like, it's very hard for a Stark in Westeros, as we know. But we sort of started the show with the Starks, and I just need to ask you guys to do whatever you can to either lobby George R.R. or the creators of the show, because I really think, as fans of the show, we need you guys to stay alive. So can you do that for us?
We're trying, dude. We're trying, but they keep on doing bad stuff to us, you know?
I don't know.
I don't know how
I don't
Arya's
know what it is about the Starks, man. They just hate us.
I don't know how Arya's gonna do without her eyes in the new season, but
Yeah.
I'll try.
All right, good. I want to take questions from everybody here, so if you guys want to start lining up for that. So let's start taking some questions from you, the audience. How does this, there we go. There's a light, there's a mic.
Wow.
Here comes some people.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Quite an operation. Hi there.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. My name's Lila.
Hi, Lila.
My question is for Maisie Williams. I just want to say, Fala Magulis.
Baladahides.
Thank you very much.
Good question.
Well, I also wanted to know, what challenges do you foresee going forward playing Arya now that she's blind and everything?
Well, from the last scene that we shot with David, the contacts that I was wearing for that big reveal at the end, I did it for one shot, so I only had them in for about 15 minutes. And they're really, really thick and really, really wide to get into your eye. But once they're in, they took a couple of minutes to get a bit more comfortable. But then they were straight back out again. So I'm worried if I'm going to have to do any fighting or anything. One, I can't see, and two, they're extremely uncomfortable. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what they write in, because it takes them 3 seconds to be like, Arya fights blind, but it takes me a long time to master that. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Thank
Well, at least you won't have to drive a car.
Yes, sir.
Good point. Good point.
Come on.
Hi, my name is Jacob. My question is for the incredibly talented and beautiful Natalie Dormer. So I feel like with Marjorie, we finally got to a point in the story where she's accomplished a lot of what she set out to do. She's become queen, not Joffrey's queen, but Tommen, whom she can persuade. Yet in season 5, we didn't see her accomplish a lot with this power. What can we expect, any grand schemes from Queen Marjorie in season 6?
Well,
can't say anything.
I will say our cast here they're going to have a hard time answering questions about what's going to happen moving forward. I think that's probably fair, right?
yeah, thanks, Seth.
You're welcome. Because I tried backstage and they wouldn't tell me, and I'm kind of famous, so I got nothing.
To be perfectly honest, honey, a lot of us sitting at this table are in exactly the same position as you guys. David and Dan keep their cards very close to their chest, and I don't have an effing clue what's going to happen tomorrow. I really don't. All I can tell you is that Grandma ain't around to look after her anymore, and she is in a situation, like a lot of the characters are sitting next to me, they're all in new situations where they really don't know how they're going to play their next move. So I think Marjorie's in quite a bit of trouble, to be honest.
A quick question for Carolyn. How do you, when you start giving out scripts, do you compartmentalize? Does everybody see the full script, or do people just see their scenes in their like city or town? You know what I'm saying?
Well, everybody gets the whole Megillah.
Everybody gets all of it. So they do know, they just won't tell you. Okay.
No, they don't, actually. They don't, just because they get them doesn't mean they read them.
I mean, a stunning lack of curiosity. Yes, next question. Hey.
All right, my question is for everyone. Who's gonna miss Kit the most since he's obviously dead?
Anybody? Anybody gonna miss Kit even a little bit?
His hairdresser?
Kit who?
We couldn't wait for him to be gone, to be honest.
Yeah.
That hair, so annoying.
That hair, that face.
Probably always in the shower. Because you guys share like one flat, right?
Yeah.
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 That's what British people call apartments. Anyways, just trying to fit in, you guys. Next one.
Nick, and just wanted to say hi to the whole cast.
Right day to wear that shirt.
And I
Don't
do
worry.
know one thing that Jon Snow doesn't know. But I have a question for Carice.
Yes.
Do you ever hang out with Thoros Amir and like learn some cool tricks from him that might come in handy in the future? Maybe?
I mean, as Natalie just pointed out, I'm as in the dark as you all are, and it's pretty dark, I admit, and full of terrors. But who knows, man? I can't tell you anything. Sorry. Bye.
I think he was pretty just happy to get the shirt out there. I think at the end of the day, he's okay. His question to get answered. Hey, how you doing?
Hi, my name's Elizabeth. My question is for everybody. If you could change one thing about the last season, what would it be? Like a death or something your character did.
Oh. I would wait for the candle.
Thank you. Thank you. Was that so hard? Was that so hard to take a little bit of responsibility?
I know.
My goodness. Thank you, Gwendolyn.
And if she'd have waited for the candle, I'd still have a boss.
Yes.
Hello, I'm Catherine. I do want to say shame to somebody in the audience. You know who you are. And hi to everybody up there. My question is for the whole cast. Is there any stunts that you wanted to do that your stunt double got to do instead?
I do all my own stunts. I feel kind of guilty because everyone else, like especially Gwendolyn and all the warriors, fight and have 12-day scenes, and I have an afternoon bitching with Peter Dinklage. So I think apart from Hodor, I have the least physicality to do.
So every time that we see you pouring wine, that's you pouring.
No, that's my double.
Oh, that's your double.
That's
Okay.
my stunt double.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Joey. I just wanted to say, first off, you guys are all great. I love the show just as much as I love the books. And I had a question for Sophie, which was, I read in an interview that you liked that very controversial scene, or you thought it was interesting to film. And I was wondering, because, you know, Sansa started off as a very naive and innocent character, and from learning through Cersei and from Littlefinger, she kind of became strong. So I was just wondering why it was that the scene was chosen to focus on Theon, and it just felt to me like it kind of diminished. So it kind of made Sophie, so they kind of Sansa basically not a strong character anymore. Just based on the perception of the scene, I was wondering why you thought it was. By the way, I'm not like putting you on the spot. I'm sorry if I'm putting you on the spot.
No.
Exactly what
There's one thing that Sansa still is, despite what happened to her, is strong. She's not to blame for any of that. I think, I really don't know why you'll have to ask the writers about that one, why they focused on Theon, because I was giving a great performance. I mean, they just pan in on him, and I'm like, great. I mean, I think Sansa, yeah, she has gone through a lot, but she has, you know, developed skills from Cersei and Marjorie and others. And she's still just as strong as she was before, but again, what she's been doing this whole time, this whole series, is she's been kind of just getting by without doing anything totally radical, because that could, you know, totally change her situation. She could die. And with the Boltons, that's a big risk to take. And I think she knows that. She's not stupid. She didn't just think, all right, then, this is going to happen. I think she thought it through in her head. She could have fought back if she wanted to, but she didn't. And I think that's, you know, it's good for her character. She's one of those characters that kind of does her scheming in her mind rather than outwardly. No worries, man.
All right. Thank you in advance, our next question actors.
Look at them.
Just wanted to ask you all if you ever ad-lib and if it ever makes it on the show.
Do you guys ever ad-lib? That's such a great question.
No.
No.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Can you imagine trying to ad-lib on this show? Like, you wouldn't have a clue what you were trying to say. You can't be like, yeah, man, okay, yeah, sick. You can't do that.
Oh my God, Ramsey's the worst. Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. I don't know who's worse, Ramsey or Joffrey. But I just wanted to ask, okay, so now that we have Drogon coming out and showing what he can do, and I was wondering, so the other two dragons, they're still locked up. Are they going to kind of take Drogon as like a leader and kind of, because I know right now Daenerys, she can't really control those dragons, but now that Drogon's out, so maybe he could actually kind of become the leader of those dragons so that they can actually come out and destroy everyone?
That's right.
What?
You're confirming that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
From the. Yeah.
So yes.
Drogon is the leader of the dragons.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
That's it. This is a back and forth panel. You
Yeah.
learn something, they learn something. That's how this goes.
Everybody wins.
It's a learning experience.
Looks like we got. Oh, here we go. Hi guys.
You can ask Daenerys right there. She isn't asked.
Hey, here. Well, they probably know the answer to that last
There you
question.
go.
Hi guys. A little clarification would be wonderful.
You could just have asked Drogon. He's there.
Is that a dragon?
Yeah, that's a dragon. And
The one on the
and a
right?
man, it's a dragon and a man who's about to have back problems. Hi guys.
Hi. So my question, or our question is there going to ever be a season finale that's longer than an hour, like 90 minutes? And
More dragons next season.
Don't build your part.
Have you guys ever considered doing a longer finale?
Well, almost every last episode is longer than an hour, maybe by a minute or two.
Gotcha.
But you know, there are plenty of options out there. We'll see what happens.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Hi there.
Hi, my question is for Maisie. So I think this season you really turned into like the badass assassin that you've been like becoming. But I think one of the most unintentionally funny moments, no offense, was the whole oyster thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oysters, clams, and cockles.
yeah, got the whole basket here, but
So cool.
yeah, I imagine that that's like a running joke now.
Yeah, so I think if there's two things that we're pretty sick of seeing is sweeping floors and oysters, clams, and cockles. So
Yeah,
I feel like going into the new season there might be more training, but
yeah, maybe
more
you're
physical.
blind now.
To have your clams and cockles.
And it was written oysters and cockles, and you improvised clams.
Clams.
Right?
Yeah.
That you ad-libbed that.
Yeah, that was my ad lib of the season. I think it made it. It really made the show.
Hi there.
Hi, cast.
Ooh.
Hi. All right. Wow. Hey, pretty fun question. What's your worst or funniest outtakes you've done?
Oh.
I don't make mistakes.
I swear a lot in Dutch, I think.
Oh no. Sir Pounce was a nightmare. I think there is a blooper reel where you see a little bit of the experience that Dean Charles and I had, but that cat would not stay on that bed at all. It's a wonder we got the scene set.
I had an issue with the cat in season 1 when Arya's chasing the cat, and she's supposed to not be able to catch the cat. But every single time I could catch the cat, it wouldn't run away. And I said, what do I do if I go over and I catch the cat? They said, yeah, but you won't. So in the take, I like walked over stealthily to the cat and then picked it up, and it just went like.
So we had the opposite problems. They miscast the cats.
I needed that cat, and you needed my cat.
Yeah, we needed to swap cats.
We were gonna show the cat audition reel next. You'll see how wrong they got it. Hey, who's up?
Hi, my name is Maggie. I have a question for Carice. What is it like to play such an interesting, complex character that is largely vilified by the audience?
Ooh. What is that word? Vilified?
Hated. Hated.
Oh, vilified. Hated. Yeah, okay, thank you.
I knew what that word meant.
Well, actually, it's been funny because I've never had so much hate mail on the World Wide Web.
Shame.
But, you know, I get it. I mean, I love to play this character, and especially last season where it sort of starts to crumble a little bit. And like the very last scene where she basically figures out that she was quite wrong. I cannot wait to see what's going to happen with that in the next season. So yeah, I'd love to play her. It's really great to play something that I haven't played at all in my life. Like I've always played nice people, and this is
Yeah,
quite different.
this one is a little bit closer to the real Carice.
Hi there, how you doing?
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I have a question for Sophie Turner. So, Theon is a very controversial character. Half the fans want him to die, half the fans think you should forgive him because on one hand, he invaded Winterfell, betrayed the Starks, and almost killed Bran and Rickon, but on the other hand, he's really paid a heavy price. So, if you were in Sansa's shoes, which you are, like, how do you think Sansa should feel towards Theon? How do you feel?
That's a good question. That's the question that we've been thinking about all season, I guess, all last season. I mean, Sansa, until, what was it, like episode 7 or something, she was totally convinced that he had killed Bran and Rickon. And, I mean, he still betrayed her family.
I didn't almost kill Bran and Rickon. I just killed 2 peasant boys,
Yeah.
right? Just peasant boys.
Everyone
Come on.
does that.
But only because you couldn't find them. I mean, it wasn't like you.
Whatever.
Well, he still killed someone, so I'm not going to be that pleased with him. I mean, he grew up with them. There's, you know, they've always had that family bond, despite him kind of being a ward. But we don't talk about that. But I think they have, I think because she grew up with him, she's still, you know, she'll always trust in him that little bit. Where's she gone? She's, bye.
How rude.
I know. She'll always
Blah,
trust
blah.
in him that
Everyone
little
leaves
bit.
you. Everyone leaves you.
Story of my life. Sorry, this is taking forever to answer this question. I think she likes them but she hates them. There you go. Hey!
Hey, who's up?
Hello, hi, my name is Heidi.
I'm Rebecca.
Hi, Heidi. Hi, Rebecca.
We're obviously huge fans of the show, and especially the strong female characters. Who says nobody likes Miss Melisandre?
Thank you.
All right, so, but those wonderful, strong women have really had a rough season this season, and some of the fans have reacted negatively, some have reacted really positively.
So our question is, I guess, mostly directed at the showrunners, and is, will season 6 more overtly address and complicate these criticisms by showing them as the pitfalls of patriarchy, rape culture, and other forms of oppression? Thanks.
Well,
Wow.
whoa.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Complicated it will be.
I mostly like that those guys put so much time into dressing very similarly, and then one's reading off an iPhone and one has an actual pad.
Yeah.
Is that the end of that answer, pretty much?
You know, I think they're trying to, put together the best and most realistic would be the wrong word, but of the mix of those personalities in that world at that mythical time that the show takes place. And so things were not great for a lot of people, male and female.
Yeah.
I feel like this year on the show, a lot of characters had a really hard time, not just the women.
Yeah, girls aren't the only ones to lose something.
Yeah.
First season, I was the only eunuch in the village. Then Theon jumps on the bandwagon. Then all those guys over with the,
I know, Unsullied, yeah.
trendsetter.
Yeah.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, this question is for Maisie. I was wondering, since this is your first big role, how do you deal with all the newfound fame and attention from fans?
First of all, look at that Sons of the Harpy. That is great right there.
Where? Get down!
Behind that. Sons of the Harpy.
Oh, behind, yeah.
I think it's something that happened very gradually, and it wasn't one day I woke up and had to sit in Hall H and chat to thousands and thousands of people. It kind of happened over a long period of time. So I've got a really great family around me who keep me grounded when I'm home, and I'm the youngest of 4, so whenever I'm home, I'm reminded of that constantly, and I don't get to sit on the sofa, I don't get shotgun, and I don't get to choose what's on TV. And I think the fan attention is wonderful and something I'm really, really grateful for. Sometimes very overwhelming, but I am thankful every day for this life that I think all of us are, this life that we've now found ourselves in. And thank you guys for all that.
Hi there.
Hello, hi. Nothing cuts like Valyrian steel, so imagine this is my Valyrian sword.
We know what you came here for.
Question for Gwen.
My question is for the whole cast, and I just want to say the last episode was so gratifying. The first half hour, the last half hour made me so anxious for season 6. But what made me very happy about this season was seeing storylines cross, seeing Tyrion show up with Daenerys, and seeing all the characters that I've loved interact with each other. And for each of you, or any of you, what is a character that you haven't met that you would like to meet in some upcoming season?
I feel like we'd all like to work with Conleth a bit more, because he's hilarious.
Yeah.
Just sitting next to him on this panel, I've been laughing way too much. And you need to take this more seriously, Conleth.
Yeah. Well, everybody, really. But you won't, so.
There we go.
Yeah. Next question.
Just out of curiosity, how many people in the hall read the books?
Wow.
And how many deadbeats just watched the TV show? Next one.
I have a question for David, the director. If you can talk a bit about the challenges and pressures of directing a show this magnitude, knowing that every year the audience expects something better and bigger.
It's massive. When I did the Red Wedding episode, it was a situation in which I directed episode season 2. Just following the script, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't write anything. I directed season 2, and they said, we want you to direct the Red Wedding. And I said, okay, and I didn't know what that was. Then I found out exactly what it was. For 9 months, I had this pressure on my shoulders. How the hell am I going to do this? I survived that, and then came season 5 and 509 and 510. Oh my God, how am I going to do that? The dragons, the walk of shame, all those things. How I do it is because the crew and the cast are so tremendous. They support you, they're with you all the time, and they really make it happen for you. So it's really the kind of thing where, you know, it's like building a pyramid, each brick at a time, one stone at a time, and the talent is beyond measure on this table, and they make it all happen, and I can just sit and let them do it all fantastic work. But it's a great, great experience, and for a director, there's no better gift than to work with this cast and work on this show. Just the best.
Hi there.
Hi, my name is Joelle, and I slept outside the last 2 days to be the first person in this room today to see all of you. I love you and how you bring your characters to life. My question is our family favorite, Gwendolyn. How does your character, who's always unwavering, loyal, and strong, how was it for you to break down your walls and have that experience and bantering and conversation with Jamie? Do you have a preference on the person you are and then that experience?
I found it very interesting when I read the books before, and obviously then the script, about the basis of that relationship, about how we, in a mainstream TV show, we got to see this very unique, very unconventional woman enduring abuse from a man. And then the power lay in the fact that that got turned on its head, and the two develop a begrudging respect for each other that's intense and close and doesn't have its roots in sexuality. And I was thrilled to see that at last, and I felt it was a very powerful, modern representation of women, and long overdue.
Yep.
Like a can.
Hi, how you guys doing? You guys are great. You know, I've been watching you from season 1 and been going on. If it wasn't for all of you, you wouldn't have, the great cast you are. So my question right here is for Rick. You're a good man, even though you do bad things.
Often, man.
Very often. But, now right next door, Liam, and then you have Sophie. Do you guys feel like you have, it says, do you hate the bad characters that, in real life when they're, when you guys having lunch or something like that?
What's the question? Do we hate the characters in real life?
Like the Bolton, and do you guys get along?
Who could like the Boltons? They're an awful bunch. But yeah, it's definitely interesting shooting it when you're as real people, and you've got the Boltons looking very regal and sort of absolutely comfortable in this world of terror, and then you've got Sophie just sort of, Sansa being just violated, really. Every other day, and then you've got me, a shivering mess in the corner. So it's definitely there's been spontaneous fits of laughter, sort of when we're shooting it, without a doubt. But it's,
you guys did great.
Thank you.
You dressed up really well for the wedding, though. I will say that. You looked great.
It was. If anyone noticed, it was Robb Stark's costume. Just FYI, just to make it that little bit more brutal.
Yeah.
I did notice, but I don't want to admit I did. Hey.
Hi, I just like to thank you all for the fabulous job that you guys do. My question is for Alfie Allen. I want to know, what do you do to prep for the role of Reek? Like the non-physical, gestures that you do, and besides the verbal, stuff that's on the script.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of acting with the eyes, which I enjoyed. But I wouldn't say I have a sort of preparation for it. I think if the energy's not right on the day, then you're kind of messed up. But I would say that I definitely like to sort of decompress on my own a little bit afterwards. And me and Uran are actually really good friends, which some people can't find really hard to believe. And so we go out and just play pool in the evenings. But in terms of sort of preparing for it, I don't really have a method, to be honest.
Hey there.
Hey, my name is Peter, and I just wanted to thank you for all that you do in your craft and profession. And I wanted to ask the whole cast, is there a moment that has left an impact on you from the fans? And I just wanted to, ask you what has been a great moment from the fans that you've received?
Right now?
Yeah.
That's always a good one.
Well, about 3 weeks ago, the #1 fan, President of the United States, actually I got a chance to meet. And he came up to me, he shook my hand, he looked at me and put his hand here on my shoulder, hand on my shoulder and said, "You didn't kill Jon Snow, did you?" And I didn't know if I'd be sent off to Guantanamo or what the answer would be, but I said, "Mr. President, Jon Snow is deader than dead." That was my response. The Red Wedding was his favorite episode, and he kept telling me that you keep killing all my favorite characters, so I was felt guilty as charged, but that was probably my most exciting moment with a fan.
Do people ever just yell things out at you on the street?
Yeah, but nothing to do with the show.
No, they don't have anything to do with the job.
I once had a woman run at me with her hand at my crotch level. But that was a great party. No, and I went, "What are you doing?" And she went, "I just wanted to check there was something there."
She thought you were really method.
I don't speak to my mother anymore.
I think in season 6, Varys should start doing stand-up.
They got a cute little club over there.
The Marine Cellar. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, you guys are great. Show's awesome. It's obviously an awesome time to work in TV. It's obviously an awesome time to be a TV fan. So much so that HBO chose your show to test a new distribution method by putting the season 5 finale in theaters for a couple of weeks this past year. Any rumblings with that happening again? And for the cast, what did it feel like being a movie star for a couple of weeks?
Well, quite a lot of them are movie stars. Natalie and Gwendolyn. And I can't hear you.
as the Game of Thrones characters.
Oh, okay.
Bringing that world to the big screen.
I didn't know we did that.
Oh.
That's cool.
They sold out everywhere.
Oh, thank you.
Cool.
You meant season 4 when they went on IMAX.
Well, I have to say that for television, they are like 1-hour movies.
Right.
The production values, everything about them it is like making a movie.
So, Ms. Strauss, have you heard any rumblings of them continuing to do that in the future?
I think that was I think what you're referring to is the IMAX for season 4, and I think there's something that's very specific about that IMAX experience and those particular episodes that really made it suited to for people who want to sort of experience it. Whether that's right or not for the future is yet to be determined.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hi.
My name's Noemi, and this is a question for the whole cast. We have a few houses being represented here, but of the houses who are here, who would you want to see rule the realm at the very end, and why?
Well, it won't be the Baratheons.
I'm up for Hodor.
Yeah.
He could do as good a job as any of them.
Straight talker.
Yeah, real straight shooter.
Always knows what he's. Always know what he's trying to say.
I would love to live in a world where Samwell Tarly is king, to be honest.
Yeah.
Well, as we saw in earlier this season, I think episode 2 of this season, where it was the election of the Lord Commander and Sam spoke for Jon Snow and put him forward. The narrative thread through the series meant that by the end of it, Sam was out of there as a direct result of Jon becoming Lord Commander. So we saw that was actually an acting job from Sam.
Right.
He knows that Jon is probably objectively the best man for the job, but he also had one eye on his and Gilly's and baby Sam's safety. So you can see that when Sam ever has any power or influence at all, it may benefit people at large, but the bastard's always got his own interests at heart.
This is, we only have time for one last question, so welcome. And we picked a winner.
John Stevens.
I'm sorry, we need the mic 'cause it's not live. One more time.
Stevens as Benjamin Stark. I was curious whether or not Sam would have any clue as to where his character is going forward from here. And they haven't cut off my head or burned my body, so where am I?
So that's Benjamin Stark.
Oh, is it?
That's what, yes.
What was the
Took me
question?
a second too. It's an impossible to answer question.
Wasted your question.
No.
Wasted it.
No question is wasted.
What was the question?
No, that's not, it wasn't. It was, he asked if Samwell would know where Benjamin Stark is. And is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's fairly possible to answer that, as a matter of fact.
That's what I said.
No, I wouldn't know. Look at that, all absolutely possible.
You guys, thank you. This has been such an honor to be here. Give it up, wait. Give it up for the Game of Thrones cast, everybody. This is very exciting. The panel is going to stay and answer questions about HBO's Ballers. Is that right? Great. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your Comic-Con.